order the Sparks City Council meeting of December the 11th, 2017 with a roll call, please.
Mayor Martini, absent. Council members Abbott.
Here.
Lawson.
Here.
Smith.
Here.
Bybee. Here. Deere.
Here.
City Attorney Adams.
Here.
City Manager Driscoll.
Here.
We have a quorum, thank you.
Okay, if you'll all stand for our invocation then. Our speaker today is Pastor Omar Palmer from the Sparks Seventh-day Adventist Church. Thanks for coming today.
Oh, thank you
Pastor.
so much. Let's join together in prayer. Oh, Heavenly Father, we are indeed very grateful, gratified for the fact that you have given us life in an abundant manner, so much so that we could live to see the end, the last month in 2017. I want to thank you for this council. We pray for the mayor who is not present here today. We ask that you will bless him with good health. We ask that you continue to guide this council in a directive that will bring glory and honor to your name. As they have been privileged to serve this year, we pray that you may pronounce a special blessing upon them and the citizens of this great city of Sparks. We ask that your hand be continuously upon us, and we pray that you will continue to provide us with all that is necessary to lead this city in a better and brighter future. And now, Lord, we turn over to you today the proceedings. We pray that you will take full control, and only those things that will be approved, that will bring honor to your name and that will advance your cause, will be a part of the agenda. Thank you for all that has been accomplished this year. Quite a lot. And we give you thanks and we praise you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor. If you remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance, and Catherine, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I'm going to open up the public comment period. Anybody wishing to speak, please fill out a card. And if you haven't filled one out and you want to speak, then we'll get you to fill out afterwards. So my first speaker is anonymous. Come on up. You have 3 minutes, ma'am. Welcome.
This on? If I could please have the remote camera train on the documents instead of on me, I would appreciate it. These documents are very significant because these are the documents that are before the courts who are ruling on just the amount of damages that these children are seeking from each of you for the way child abuse is being handled by the city of Sparks. The Sparks v. Sparks case settled out of court, but legislation came out in 2015, and the legislation is right here. I'm going to have to read it. It says, this section does not authorize the city manager to make investigations into the municipal court except pursuant to an agreement with the municipal court. Now, these documents go through at least 2 attorneys' eyes. This language is illegal. There is no one who is above the law. And when I spoke with City Manager Driscoll, he said he was going to have the city attorney investigate the courts. Well, he couldn't, according to this ordinance. So we did follow up with Justice McCarthy, and she said that no such agreement was made. So we know that the investigation of Heidi Shaw, the court administrator, City of Sparks employee, continues to still destroy child abuse evidence in domestic violence cases. The city of Sparks paid dearly for legal representation in the case, and they had an amicus brief with Thomas Arthur Ritchie Jr., and he is the district judge in the 8th Judicial District. And he was disqualified by this order here. The chief judge in the 8th Judicial District is Jennifer Tagliati. I would like you to look at the dates. Well, I'll just, if we can bring this up. Art Ritchie signed this November 2011 for Sparks, yet he was disqualified as a judge in April 2011. So the statements that he made in his amicus brief to the Nevada Supreme Court was false. A judge gets disqualified when they're found bias, prejudice, and acting with improprieties. One of the reasons that information, I have to wait till next time. Thank you for your time.
Next speaker is Kathleen Shuck. Come on down, Kathleen.
Hello, good afternoon. I am here to argue against the proposed high school on the Wild Creek Golf Course land. The school board has told us that the Wild Creek Golf Course is an ideal location for the new high school, and they base that on their own desire to acquire that property with absolutely no input from the citizens of Washoe County, including the residents of Sparks. Everyone I've spoken to is against this project unless they have some interest in making money while building on it. I can't imagine that you would want your legacy to include the destruction of such a valuable green space. Washoe County School District has said that they would be financially responsible for the necessary road improvements, but they have not said that they will spend anything to improve the capacity of the sewer to accommodate the school. They were nice enough, however, to do an estimate of the cost of making improvements for the sewer so that the city, our city planners can deal with it. Those costs are shown, well, I was going to show it, but the type is so small, I don't know that it'll show up at all. The total of just the sewer improvements comes to $5,211,790. I would have made you all copies of this document, but then I found that you had already received that document. The sewer project would involve ripping up Wedekind Road, tearing up Green Bay, Audie Boulevard, Sullivan Lane, McCarran Boulevard, and a few smaller streets like Probasco that would, and Probasco probably wouldn't cause any major traffic difficulties like Sullivan, Wedekind, and McCarran will. The projected costs of upgrading the sewer do not reflect the cost of replacing the roads, and it does not reflect the frustrations of our citizens while being stuck in traffic. Please don't allow this project to continue. That school should be built in a more appropriate location. Just because something is possible doesn't mean that it is right. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathleen. Tom, I have your letter here. Did you want to read this into the record?
My letter?
Yeah.
I just was curious of other alternatives. Sorry about that.
You can't talk from the chair in the audience.
Yeah, come on, Tom. Welcome.
Hello, Tom Young, Great Basin Brewing Company here. And I was was very, very excited about the item coming up at 6.2 and getting some sort of development in Victorian Square, which makes me really happy having gotten to know lots of developers in the past and no action. And finally, we have some stuff going, and it makes me really, really excited. I am a little concerned that we become more like Midtown by losing all our parking. That's my only concern about this, and I wanted to make sure that we have adequately looked at the parking situations. I did a bit of a study and sent to some of the Mr. Witt and some other people there too, just to determine how many spaces are used now before the apartment complexes go up. And it looks like on Tuesday nights and Friday and Saturday nights, that garage has about 150 extra cars in there, non-special event nights and things too. And the new project is looking promising about 90. And so we're adding a lot of apartments with oversized vehicles. And I'm not sure that there's another alternative that we can guarantee that we actually do have enough parking for our patrons now. But I really like seeing this project go forward also.
That's it? Thank you, Tom. Tom, would you fill out one of these cards over
I
there?
did.
Oh, you did? Okay. Bring it, I'll take it. Thanks, Tom. Okay, anybody else in the audience wishing to speak at this time? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the council. Move on to 5.1, approval of the agenda. Looking for a motion. Let me see. Is this thing not working?
Got a real pretty picture of a
Got a
lake on
beautiful
it.
picture, yeah.
Doesn't
Okay.
help with the voting.
Were you punching in to talk?
Yeah,
Okay, Mr. Lawson?
what am I approving, minutes or agenda?
Agenda.
Move to approve the agenda as presented.
Okay, is there a second? Just speak up if you.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. 6.1, consideration, discussion, and possible approval of the minutes of the regular Spark City Council meeting of November 27th, 2017, and the concurrent meeting of November 6th, 2017.
Move to approve the minutes as presented.
Okay, Ms. Bybee?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. There we go. Passes unanimously. Okay, 7.1, announcements, presentations, recognition items, and items of special interest. I don't see,
Yes, you do.
yes, you do. Where, there she is. Jordan Van Worth, come on down, Jordan. Welcome. Miss Sparks, 2017. Matter of fact, I met her Saturday night down at 39 North. She helped us present the winner of the Griswold Family Challenge. Welcome, Jordan.
I found it, but I can't open it.
So Jordan, when were you crowned?
I was crowned last January,
Okay,
so I'm at the end of my reign as a title holder.
okay,
I'm very excited for what's coming next, and I'm here to talk about the Miss America organization and what we do.
okay.
It's a little different than what people think. We are not a beauty pageant. Oh, perfect. Thank you. So as you know, I'm Miss Sparks 2017, Jordan Van Worth. I am 20 years old and I just graduated with my first degree. I have a bachelor's in psychology, which I am very excited that I did not pay a single dime for. All of that came from my scholarships through the Miss America organization. Our organization is laid out in 3 separate ways. We start with how our pageants work. You, of course, enroll in a local pageant first. I was obviously enrolled in the Miss Rena Sparks pageant. It's about 2 days of competition. You have an interview day and an on-stage day. Miss Nevada, we spent 6 days in Las Vegas, so that was pretty exciting. And if you win Miss Nevada, you move on to Miss America, which is 2 weeks in Atlantic City. We have 3 separate age groups. The princesses, who are girls who are too young to compete right now, but they are mentored through outstanding teens who are 13 through 17, but not a senior in high school, and misses who are 17 and up, but a senior in high school. This is just a picture of my little group. We start at the bottom. The little one is a princess, and then there was me as a blonde. Miss Sparks Outstanding Teen, Miss Damani Ranch Outstanding Teen, and 2 other princesses. So we have 5 stages of competition, and it varies between local organizations how exactly they work. For Miss Rena Sparks, our private interview is 10 minutes long, and it's about anything. They can ask you political questions, controversial issues, about your resume, your personal platform, our national platform. So basically any question that could come up in any conversation we are asked. Then the misses compete in swimsuit, and the outstanding teens compete in a fitness wear. So they wear like yoga pants and a tank top. A little less exposing for the younger girls. Talent is anything you could possibly think of. We have a dagger thrower. I'm a dancer. We've had somebody made sushi rolls one year. That was a nice talent. Evening gown is fairly self-explanatory, and then there's on-stage question. For the misses, it's about our personal platform, so we all have to choose one community service project to work on throughout our entire year. I have a healthy eating campaign and a physical fitness campaign that I'm working with younger kids starting before elementary school, since I work in a preschool. And for outstanding teen contestants, it's controversial issues pertaining to their age group. Our private interview is 25% of our overall score. Misses 10 minutes, outstanding teens 8 minutes. Anything, there's no subject or question that's off limits. If our directors feel that a question has crossed a certain line, or if they feel that a judge is trying to get a girl, then they'll ask them to please move on to a new subject or a new question line. Swimsuit, 15% of our overall score. It is by far the most controversial area of competition, especially since the Miss United States pageant has decided to remove their swimsuit competition. It's less about what you look like in a swimsuit and more about how you can present yourself on stage. There are girls of all colors, all shapes, all sizes who go on stage and they win swimsuit. So it's less about what you look like, more about how you're going to do it and how you're going to present yourself on stage. That's the Miss Nevada swimsuit competition. All of our swimsuits are sponsored by Venus, so we don't actually pay to be there. It's very exciting. They're excited to see us on stage wearing their swimsuits, and we're excited to wear them. Talent is our biggest area of competition. It is 35% of our overall score. If you go longer than 90 seconds, each judge has to, by Miss America bylaws, take points off of your overall score. Any routine of your choice. These are just a few examples of what people have done in the past and things that you can see on the Miss America stage. I was very excited to win the Talent Award this year at Miss Nevada. I came home with a $500 scholarship because I won the Talent Award. Those are a few pictures from my Miss Nevada talent. Girls do pretty much anything you can think of. Evening gown is the last 20% of our overall score. Our gowns vary just as much as our talent. We've had girls in 2 pieces, long sleeves, high-lows, all kinds of colors, any style. Judges are asked not to consider the price or the brand of the gown, more to look at the girl in the gown. Miss America contestants are asked to be excellent in all areas of their life. So we are a service-based organization. So we go out in the community, we do things like 39 North Pole Village. I was part of a water safety team in Lake Tahoe. Anything you can think of. This year I have completed so far about 1,200 hours of community service. We are asked to be excellent in our academics as well because the money that we win goes directly to our college scholarships. So some of our girls have, our Miss Reno's Outstanding Teen, her GPA is 4.8 in high school. So we're asked to be excellent in every single thing we do, on stage and off. We are also all Goodwill ambassadors for Children's Miracle Network. That's our national platform. So as a local contestant, we all raise $100 each. As a state contestant, it's moved up to $500, and as a national contestant, $1,000. So that's just a little breakdown of some of the things I've done. I have completed events in 3 different states and numerous different counties, which is pretty exciting. Usually you don't get to do different states until you're an actual state title holder. Any questions?
Jordan, what's next on your schedule?
Well, I'm ready to hand down my title, so we're preparing the new crop of girls right now. Actually, this Saturday, we will do our Breakfast with Santa fundraiser for our scholarship money.
And then the competition starts in January?
Yes. So the new Miss Sparks, Miss Reno, and Miss Washoe County will be crowned January 28th.
Well, and I want to just say I was with Jordan Saturday night at 39 North. It was a great turnout, and And you did a great job, and it was Emily? Is that who was with you?
Yes,
Emily, yeah.
one of my
so
little princesses.
Beautiful job. Charlene?
Thank you so much for
I mean,
coming,
Miss
Jordan.
Ivy, I'm sorry.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Having been involved with the Miss America program myself, and really that education piece of awareness of what the program is super important, because people still think it's a beauty contest. And the thing
yes.
that I like that has changed since the years I was involved myself and then ran the Miss Reno pageant many years ago is the platform. So the girls, I think the fact that you all choose a platform and make a difference in your community by work with that platform is just an exciting thing for me. And I will have to say, I was at Miss Nevada this year in Las Vegas and saw you do your talent, and you well deserved that talent award. I was so proud to see Miss Sparks. I'm like, go Miss Sparks, and your talent was amazing. So you have represented us really well, and I'm curious, are you going to run for another title, or are you going to give Miss Nevada another shot?
I will. They have just announced that Miss America upped our age level so we can go all the way to 25. I don't plan on waiting that long to win Miss Nevada, but I will be competing for Miss Carson City in February. So that's my next step.
Just want to wish you the best of luck, and thank you
Thank
for
you.
representing the city of Sparks.
It's a pleasure.
Absolutely. Mr. Dare?
We got to meet, they were at Evening in Blue, and I just want to say that it was neat watching, because you had all different ages serving and helping and just kind of making a difference there. And so one of the things I just think is fantastic is that if you get your girls involved in this, if you have a young lady, they get to learn how to give back to the community, which I think is number one of what they're doing. And so good job.
So each title holder has the opportunity to have as many Nevada State princesses as they like. I have 9. So the girls are all different ages. They're all different kinds of girls. I have a couple dancers. One of my little ones throws knives, so that'll be her talent when she's of age
Keep
to
her out of
compete.
the chamber.
Yes. She's my little daredevil. So the girls have gotten some amazing opportunities this year. We did Evening in Blue. We were the celebrity announce team at Reno Tahoe Odyssey. So I've taken the program and I've run with it, and I'm excited to move on and keep going.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, how do we get the knife thrower in here?
I said don't bring her in here.
Well, we rigged an entire science fair board, like a trifold, so that her knives cannot go past the board.
Well, couldn't we set it up behind us instead of in front of us?
I think she might be a little nervous for that one, because we like on the side.
Listen, you've been a great representative, and
Thank
thank
you.
you so much. We appreciate
Thank
you
you.
coming down.
We should get a picture with her.
Should we? Ms. Sparks, can you come down and we'll get a picture?
Picture day today?
It's picture day.
We all match our shirts, so.
You don't have to put your antlers back.
Yeah, good.
Or you'll just drop it.
We're gonna do the big guy there and the small guy. You wanna get next one?
One, two. Away.
Wait, not yet. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Thanks for coming. Of course, it was a pleasure to be here. Thank you. Yes, you too. Thank you.
Okay, 7.2, presentation and update on the Northern Nevada State Veterans Home being built in Sparks. The 102,000 square foot facility will have 96 beds and a host of amenities. Groundbreaking took place on July 17th. We were there, and is slated to open in December of 2018. And this is just not the Veterans Home, it is a campus, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Good afternoon, Council, Mayor Pro Tem, Kathy Cluett, Legislative Liaison, for the record. I'm here to introduce your presenters today for an update on the Northern Nevada State Veterans Home. The City Manager's Office thought it would be nice to get a quarterly update in preparation for the actual opening ceremony next December. Your presenters are Wendy Simons, who is the Deputy Director of Health and Wellness for the Northern Nevada Department of Veteran Services. You guys gotta have so much there.
No, sorry.
And then also here is Kat Miller, the Director, and then Wendy will introduce the rest of the staff that is here.
Welcome, Wendy, how are you?
Thank you so much. I'm well, thank you. And it truly is an honor to be able to come before you today. I know many of you attended the groundbreaking in July So we're very excited to give you an update today on what's going on with the home. I do have Director Kat Miller with me today. Ron Crook, who is the project manager from State Public Works. Terry Hendry, who's our communications director, and Kathy Yates, who is our community outreach for the North. So we all stand ready, and I hope I didn't miss anybody. We all stand ready at your service as we move forward with this and in any way we can to keep the council briefed and keep you all aware of what we're doing. I do want to do a quick sidebar. There is nothing more wonderful than having a young lady who is gorgeous with a crown. And did she leave? Oh, she did, darn, because at many of our veteran recognition events that we've hosted this year, we had Miss Nevada. And I'd like to say that the ceremonies that we provided for the veterans in the community through our Veterans in Care initiative was well received, but I'll tell you, when Miss Nevada goes up and smiles and gives them a hug, they just melt. So I look forward to maybe having Jordan be Miss Nevada and being able to appear before us in the future for the Vet Home. So on that note, let me move forward. Obviously, there's a typo. There's over 80,000 veterans, you can see I missed a zero, I apologize, residing in the Northern Nevada area. And we've had a veterans home in Boulder City since 2001, but there was no corresponding facility to serve those in Northern Nevada. The Southern Nevada facility is at capacity and actually remains a 5-star facility, an award-winning facility. And we're just very proud of the staff and the veterans that are residing there. And I'm just going to give you the high level because there's a lot of backstory that you really don't need to be concerned about. But Governor Sandoval in the 2017 legislature approved an advanced funding to begin the construction of the home. We were approved in 2006 for a federal grant, which will supplement 2/3 of the cost of building the home, but we were waiting for the federal appropriation to reach the funding levels that would have brought that money forward. And if not for the initiative of our governor and the legislature this year, we'd probably still be sitting out there waiting to have this happen. So we're just pleased as punch and very excited. Obviously, State Veterans Home fill an important need for veterans who may be low income and veterans who desire the camaraderie of fellow veterans, which is a common tie with all of the others. The beauty of a veterans home that I discovered when I first started going to the home in Boulder is the spirit. And nobody really wants to be in a nursing home. It's not a fun place to go. You go for rehab and you want to get out as quick as possible. However, the spirit and the soul and the camaraderie that we find in the veterans home in Boulder City just warms your heart. And actually, the chairman of our resident council is a lady named Colette, and she improved so much through rehab at the home that she was almost losing eligibility to stay in the home and was going to be discharged. And we learned today that's not the case. We can still keep her qualified to be a resident, and so we're thrilled because I think she's thriving as a result of that culture with her fellow service members. To be in the veterans home, a state veterans home, 25% may be veteran-related family members. In other words, spouses, surviving spouses, and/or Gold Star parents, those who have lost a soldier in combat. 75% of the residents must be veterans, and that's a federal criteria. The home in Boulder has 180 resident capacity, has an average of 127 male veterans, 40 spouses, and 13 women veterans. In the Southern Nevada home, just by way of comparison, so we know what we can be looking forward to when we open the home up here, hopefully the end of next year, there are 95 to 130 volunteers. The volunteer force is remarkable, close to 12,000 hours of volunteer time. So it's a tremendous presence of our veteran partners and our veteran organization partners. The Northern Nevada VA Hospital, as you know, currently has a 60-bed community living center and for 30 long-term care veterans, with the remaining 30 beds used for short-term rehab. Veterans Hospital here has been asking us for years, when can we open this home, because they're bursting at the seams. So you all in Sparks can be extremely proud of what's coming down the pike. The VA here really only maintains contracts with 2 nursing homes. I believe they just recently approved a 3rd. So they're pretty selective in the criteria that they approve for the veterans to actually be approved for residence. There's 158 elements that must be met. Currently, many of our veterans are being sent to California, averaging a 5 to 10 per month placement out of state, according to the VA hospital here in Reno. So we're going to be able to keep our veterans home once this home opens up. And I do want to tell you that we've had a waiting list starting to build for the home. I call it an interest list because some of our folks think that they can just move in like it's an apartment, but that's not what it is. You have to have a medical need for skilled care to be eligible in the home. We did a Governor's Office of Economic Development study 2 years back, and it was noted, and I think this is of interest to those of you on the City Council, that there'll be 168 job gain in the local economy and an annual payroll of over $7.5 million and an output benefit of $14 million, which will support about 326 members of our community. And that was the study done by GOED. Just to give you a quick overview, this is not your mother's nursing home. It's really a complete new model that you all are going to be bursting with pride once this thing gets up and operating. It's a community living center concept established by VA criteria. The architect is Van Wert Bugatti. They've done an amazing job. Q&D Construction is the project manager or the construction management company. And it has 3 just key elements. One is the house, which is the concept of a house versus long halls. And I'll show you footprints of that momentarily. Then there's the household, which is a combination of 2 houses blended together in these wings. And then the wings are the neighborhood, the combined footprint of the 2 households. So there's 3 neighborhoods for a total of 32 residents, for a grand total of 96 residents. Then we have the community center, and this is what's so incredibly exciting, or the Town Square Town Hall. We anticipate that this is going to be a destination for the veterans who live in the resident neighborhoods. And the whole idea is to bring community in for meetings, for gatherings, the veteran community in, and you'll see that it has a barber shop, a beauty shop, sports bar, dining commons, which is going to be restaurant style, and a commissary or store, chapel, a coffee ice cream parlor, and a physical therapy gym, and of course meeting rooms. And the whole idea is so the veterans come out of their neighborhoods and they can go to the coffee shop or bistro, or they can gather in the sports bar for whatever functions are going on. It's going to really be kind of fun. So it's a place to look forward to go. The site location you're all familiar with, and it sits on the Northern Nevada Adult Mental Health Campus. And to the right of the screen up there is the D.N.E. Townsend, to the left is Lakes Crossing, and we're on the 14 acres in the middle there, with a road being cut in from Kitsky. Currently, the address is listed as number 2 Kitsky Lane, but we are hoping, and we've submitted forward, to actually change that section of the road's name to Battleborn Way. So number 36, Battleborn Way for the 36th state in the Union, and Battleborn for the state of Nevada. So you'll be hearing a little bit more about that as well. And then you can see just kind of the wing overlay. This was the architect's design of how that sits and looks on the property. So to the bottom left hand of the screen is where the road cuts in from Kitsky, and then you see the driveway loop, which, by the way, that little green segment around the semicircle driveway is a parade ground and ceremonial ground that's going to be staged so we can have outdoor ceremonies and events. The middle building is the town hall, and then we have the 3 wings, neighborhood 1, 2, and 3. With neighborhood 2 to your right-hand side, that's going to be memory care, designated for memory care and actually some behavioral component, which has been expressed to us as a critical need through the VA hospital. You can't really see too much of this because, of course, I crushed down to get it on a slide, but that's the town hall. So up by the word town is the entrance through the porte cochere. And then as you come in, there's a concierge area. Then on the back side of that is a fireplace, and then the hallway. Sports bar is to the left of the screen. Coffee bistro is to the right. The beauty shop and barber shop. There's a what's called a volunteer room and library. The gymnasium and therapy center is off to the upper right-hand picture. And actually out in front of that, there's going to be something kind of fun. And that is tiles that are laid to resemble a football field. So as part of the therapy, outside is goal setting. And I just couldn't resist trying to coax that out. So it's not really going to be a 300-yard football field, but nevertheless, it's going to resemble a football field. So we have some goal setting. In the center, off to the right, well, the right where all the red is the kitchen. And then there's the dining hall, a Nevada room that can also double as a little movie theater area. And then the wings that go down, you'll see that first hallway that goes down at the bottom left of your screen. That's where the conservatory and the chapel are located. The other interesting, these are the wings. And each of the wings, as you will see, has a segment that is a house. And that's 8 private rooms, private baths for the residents. There's a living room, dining room, kitchen, and den. And each of these kitchens are designed to be accessible to the folks, the veterans, if they really want to go in and try to cook something, with supervision, of course. We're working with Division of Public Health because they have strict criteria. But if you really lay it out as a model, sometimes people in regulatory arenas can kind of change their minds a little bit. Then we have a spa. We have clinical core that is not so much visible, and it's just really housey. When you go into a typical nursing home, you actually see mechanical lifts and you see all kinds of equipment, medical equipment in the hallways. These are all behind cabinets that are built in. So there's going to be beautiful millworks and cabinetry that stores these behind, and it very much feels like coming into a house. Courtyard in the middle, front porch entry to the right and to the left so that visitors can actually come into the house. And they don't necessarily have to go through the dining, the big common entry in, and it feels, again, more like family. We're, again, very excited. The design and the furnishings and everything is going to be quite residential. This is a little more colorized version of how the layout of each of the wings are. And incidentally, we do have bariatric rooms with the bariatric lifts that will be in the ceiling, and the doors to all the bathrooms are barn doors. The sliding barn doors, so we don't have any swinging doors that knock people over who are using walkers and wheelchairs. This is where we are today. The aerial photos, and you can see on the bottom right-hand side is the view of the site, the airport in the background, the city of Sparks, of course, and we're so grateful for you. And then that was a shot from about a week and a half ago of how the construction is coming along. So based on the previous items that I brought up to you, you can kind of see it is coming. The walls are slated to begin to go vertical in January, and the target date, once again, for us to have a ribbon cutting is by year end of 2018, if not before. Q&D, I have to commend them. They've been amazing. The design teams have been fabulous, but I would also like to extend gratitude to your city and your city folks that we've worked with the last 3 years, bringing this forward, your fire department, your planning committee, certainly Kathy for scheduling us to be able to come and bring this to you today. And we hope to have the same relationship with the city of Sparks that we've had over the last 15 years with the city of Boulder. City of Boulder holds its Chamber of Commerce meetings in the Boulder home. We envision this as being a community hub where folks can come and actually truly revere our veterans, but our veterans can still stay connected to those that have brought so much to their lives and that they have stood in defense of our lives. So timeline, this is a estimated timeline of how it all phases out. There might be some adjustment to this as we go along. We did this for the legislature, so we could say when it started, when construction's complete, when it looks like we're admitting our first residents. Please remember that we have to be licensed by the State of Nevada Health Division or Division of Public and Behavioral Health. We're also certified by CMS, and we will be certified by the VA for the cost coverage of the residents in the home. And that actually concludes the formal presentation. If you have any questions, I stand at your service.
Wendy, thank you very much. Questions or comments from the council? Mr. Abbott?
Yeah, I had a quick one on the coffee and barber shop. Is that open to the public to come in?
Actually, good question. Absolutely.
Cool.
Yeah, the whole idea is to be able, say you have a grandfather in the home and you go get him and you say, hey, let's go to town hall and have some coffee. Yeah, or ice cream. The ice cream was recommended because out at the Boulder home, everybody likes ice cream. So, yeah, there's never enough ice cream. And of course, we'll have hot chocolate for the kids. But yes, it is. It's meant to be a community hub, so, yeah. And the idea is family. So, thank you.
To carry that a little bit further, can people come in and use the restaurants or anything like that also, or do they have to be attached with a veteran?
Well, I can't define that yet because we're going to be using a management company. Our hope is that, yes, you want to come and visit, you're going to, we've laid out in our RFP for the management company that they have a menu that has at least 10 items at each meal setting so that you could come in, take dad or whatever. But it wouldn't necessarily, I don't envision, but anything can happen, that it becomes now a public restaurant as much as aligned with the veterans that are in the home and the visitors accordingly.
So when somebody is taken to the campus, are they there for the duration of their treatment, or how long can they really stay there?
Actually, that's a wonderful question. Skilled nursing facilities, by virtue of CMS guidance, can be long-term care, and folks can be there for an extended period of time. We have several residents have been with us 8+ years at the home in Boulder. The other is that they come in for rehab and they may go back out to community living. We had a 35-year-old naval veteran who fell down a ship's ladder, three flights of a ship's ladder, and broke his back, and subsequently was paralyzed, not by the fractures, but by an infection that got into his spine. He was with us at the home for 4 months and was able to improve to the point that now he went to a specialty rehab program down in Long Beach and will be living independently in an apartment. So you have the mixture of both. The one thing that I have to share with you, do we have veterans on the council? Thank you. Thank you for your service. As you well know, and I as a civilian, but who grew up on the laps of World War I vets, my family started the first senior housing in Nevada in 1948. So what I found, and through Director Miller as well, is the wonderful bantering between the branches of service. So I remember being in the town hall at the home down in Boulder, at about 6:30 in the morning, trying to find a cup of coffee. We had to change the policy down there so coffee was available at 6. But anyway, these three old guys, one Army, Navy, and Air Force, were all bantering. And the Army guy was saying, we were the boots on the ground. We were the ones that actually did the hardcore defense. And, these are World War II vets. And the Air Force said, well, if not for us, you wouldn't have had planes flying over that would have actually given you the air support you needed on the ground in the field. And the Navy guy said, hey, without us, you wouldn't have had the boats to take the planes off from. So this heavy bantering is going back and forth. And it got pretty heated. It was really kind of cute, but it was jovial. And then the dining hall doors opened and they all slapped each other on the back and said, let's go to breakfast. That's what you have. You have that spirit of service, the call to serve the country, and the call to serve each other in a brotherhood or sisterhood. So if their condition allows them to stay, then they can stay the duration of their time. If their condition improves to the point they can go back out to independent living, they will do that as well.
I have just 2 more questions, and before I forget the second one, I'm going to give you the first one because you said you had about 130 volunteers.
Yes.
Is it mostly veterans that are volunteering, or is it just
spouses? We've had spouses at the home. We actually have several of them whose husbands were there and they passed away, and they just kept coming to serve. So there's community partners, there's former patients, former residents who come back and volunteer. We have an 80-year-old lady named Peggy Randall who is on our independent review panel. And she also has been a mainstay now in our community outreach initiatives. So it's community, it's veterans, it's spouses, and it's service organizations as well, and veterans organizations.
Very good. One last question. Do they have to go through the VA hospital to be assigned a spot?
No.
Do they go through just you guys?
They have to have a DD 214.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, they have to legitimize that they were service members or the spouse of a service member or the surviving parent. And if they happen to have service-connected disability, they have greater coverage of the cost of care. And incidentally, the cost of care is a question that comes up. Your standard nursing home today for an individual who has to go in for rehab initially, Medicare usually covers it, but then after 45 days and 60 days and 120, it titrates down, is pretty close to 350 plus a day. At the Boulder home right now, we are 125 a day. So it's more cost affordable. We will do Medicare, Medicaid, and veteran, so.
Good stuff. Mr. Dare.
Just one question with the volunteers. Are you guys collecting volunteer list now? So if people say, hey, I'm interested, is there a way people can find more information? Is that coming
Absolutely.
out? So how would somebody listening to this on Facebook right now find out more information about how?
Well,
to
our
volunteer?
wonderful communications director, Terry Henry, Henry. I'm
think
talking.
we all know Terry.
I'm talking,
Yeah.
we all know. We are so lucky to have Terry. Wow. Anyway, she's equally as passionate. It keeps up our Facebook page, and then we are keeping a list of those who would like to volunteer, those who would also like to donate. You know, we've had some folks say they would like to donate items for the home.
Is there an address we can send them to right now? Like where?
Yes, our department and our website, www.veterans.nv.gov. Is that what you were trying to get out of me?
Yeah.
Thank you. It's right there on the bottom of the screen.
I don't see it.
Oh, sorry. They closed you, but yes, very good. So I love these questions. Thank you. Needless to say, I'm incredibly passionate and eternally grateful that Director Miller brought me on 3 years ago to help shepherd this forward. And it is something that our city, our state, and our veteran community will be very, very pleased and proud of. So
And there's your information up
there
on
it
the
is.
screen.
Yes.
So, listen, anybody, any more questions or comments? You know, thank you so much for what you do, Kat. Thanks for coming in today. Good seeing you both again. I'm looking forward to it. I'm sure everybody is. So it's going to be a big deal.
Oh, it's, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I've been in the industry all my life, and I also, just by way of sidebar, was head of the regulatory agency that licenses and surveys all hospitals, nursing homes, and other facilities in the state. This is going to be amazing.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
gonna be
Thank you so much.
Thank you. A privilege. Thank you all. And are you all going to volunteer? Or send a volunteer?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Volunteer for all
Yeah.
of us.
Sure. We're in the mood for pictures today,
is
so
picture
get
day.
everybody up here. Why don't you have them stand in front here, and then we'll be behind them. How's that? Get your whole crew down here. It's good to see you. Good job. It's good to see you again. Terry, how are you? Good to see you. Yeah.
You know what, Wendy, they've got, those girls are so busy, I know the executive director, and they want them doing things, so you'd have all the locals.
You guys just stand there, I'll move them.
How
You guys
great.
just get together and we'll,
Oh, do
you
we
guys are
need
the
to,
important ones.
oh, so you guys go in, and then do we go on the outside? Do, I don't know that, you can't see us.
Show my heels today.
You should come up front.
Stand on your chair.
Stand up.
Stand on the table.
Ron, you're our vet.
Yeah, he's a veteran, so there you
Oh,
go.
I'm squeezing in.
Okay, okay.
Oh, I'm good.
Ron, have them hold you.
Do what?
Have them hold you. Like wedding photos.
Panorama. Donald's on a roll. I'm afraid for him to come to my house and have a drink. He's really on a roll today. It could be dangerous.
I broke my shell finally.
You know, Donald, I was gonna warn you.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
No problem. Thank you for everything you do.
Hey, that was a great presentation. Thank you. God bless you. Merry Christmas.
Thanks, Wendy. Okay. Okay, 7.3, presentation and update of Western Nevada Development District's comprehensive, economic development strategy and City of Sparks projects. Welcome, Ron.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Pro Tem, Council. For the record, I'm Ron Rediel, Western Nevada Development District. And technology is wonderful.
You notice nobody up here is jumping up to help you. We had to-
I see that.
Okay.
I can come down there and help you, Ron.
Donna's there. Donna's right there.
Is mine up here? No.
Yes, there it is.
There it is, right there. Okay, thank you. As I said, I'm with Western Nevada Development District. Christopher Dare used to be on our district board. Ed Lawson is currently our district president. So we've had some representation from Sparks in the past. What I wanted to talk to you about today are two things. Number one is the update that we are doing on our comprehensive economic development strategy for the district. This is a document that we update every year. It's a document that we rewrite, a major rewrite every 5 years. So we are, again, doing our update. We've got some goals and strategies that are in the SEDS. We have the district board act as our SEDS committee. So they're the ones that develop it. We also give some other public input to make our document more representative of the region and what is actually occurring within the area, within the region. One of the main things with the SEDS is that we have our project listing and we have our goals and strategies. And these two items are kind of related, particularly when we start looking at making applications for either public or private funding. In the 2014 Farm Bill, for example, USDA Rural Development may assign additional points to project applications that they receive if that project application meets one of the goals or is part of a strategy, or if it is specifically listed in that project listing. They can assign up to 80 additional points. Now, don't ask me how they do that because they kind of keep that to themselves, which is probably the best way to do it. But any entity, public or private, a nonprofit, for example, that is making application for funding to either a public funding source or a private sector funding source, if you can cite that you're part of this multi-jurisdictional plan, it's going to look good on your application, and depending upon the funding agency, they may be assigning additional points for those applications. Specifically for USDA Rural Development, they have assigned extra points for applications for business and industrial loan program applications in Douglas and Churchill County. They did a B&I that will be submitted for Story. They are also going to probably assign additional points there. And then I know of a lending institution in the region that is also using the SEDS. This is an example of a private entity utilizing the SEDS to be able to have a project approved, as well as for the normal public facilities for water and wastewater disposal in Humboldt County. This is an example of some of the goals and some of the strategies that, again, look through there and cite what you can use as part of your application. I know of one economic development director in the region. When I go into their office and I see the copy of the SEDS on their desk, they have got this thing with all kinds of sticky notes all over it because they are applying to different funding sources for projects within their community, and they're really using it to their best advantage. The project listing becomes rather important again because if it's your project application can be shown to be project list or meeting a goal or strategy, you can get those additional points. These are just some examples that we have in our current SEDS update of what some of the projects are. Project listing again, we've talked about that. Clear down at the bottom, bold-faced, project listing due date, January 30th. We'd like to have the jurisdictions provide us with their project listing to include in our SEDS update, so the board will be adopting this most likely at their February 2018 board meeting. These can be projects, they can be initiatives. The council really needs to say, okay, we approve these, we think these are the ones that need to be included as part of the SEDS update for the district. And you can go ahead and probably consult, talk to your department heads. They may have other ideas and other projects that they're looking at. They can be either long-term or short-term, because we know that if you have a project listing come up, you get it developed, what you have listed as number 1 may not be ready, but number 5 might be. So then you go to number 5. We've all been through this process. We all know how it works. So keep this in mind. January 30th is when we'd like to have these back, preferably electronically to the district office. Are there any questions?
Questions or comments? And Mr. Lawson?
Well, this is quite a deal. If you go to the Western Nevada Development District site and look at the projects listed, look at Douglas County in particular. They have probably a page and a half on there, and it lists everything from sidewalks to wastewater. So, and you know, the kitchen sink is in there somewhere, I'm sure, but we as Sparks should be looking towards this in our industrial area that we're hoping to come up with here in the short time. So, and I'm sure we could use it out at the sewer plant, but they just need to get on the list. And if it's on a list, then that just gives us a better chance of getting that federal funding. And it's our money anyway, so we might as well get it back.
Okay, any other, Mr. Dare?
Does this include parks, like so with our big park we have out here that we're always having to do the grass and replace that? Is that something that would be a project that might?
Yes.
Any kind of public infrastructure type stuff, yes. It's a wonderful, well-kept secret that we're not taking advantage of. The rural counties have been taking advantage of this over the years. Story County, largely their infrastructure was built on this program. All of that they were able to accomplish in Story County, a good percentage of it came through the SEDS and through grants. So we have a wonderful opportunity coming up for us and some of our expansion plans for Sparks in the future that this will help us tremendously.
Like I said, short-term or long-term. And if they are long-term, that's fine. They should be in there.
Sure, some of that will be in there. And Ron and I right now are in the process of getting around to every county commission, every city council in the district to remind them that this is a great program and they need to get their list together. So I don't know who does it for us, Steve, but we should readdress this and start putting our wish list together. We got about a month to get it into Ron so he can put it in the updated SEDS report. Because, like I said, it's great to get money back that we don't have to find this money. It sits out there at the federal government level.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Ron, you mentioned points. What did the points actually get you? You earned points for different things.
when we look at applications from Nevada, it's, you know, extremely competitive anywhere you go anymore. But specifically, again, going back to USDA applications, it's difficult sometimes for applicants in Nevada to be able to qualify to be eligible based on median household income, for example, and some other criteria. So if you've got a way to be able to score additional points, and this is one way to do it, then take advantage of it. Have
Moves
that.
you up the list? Is that what
Pardon?
it moves you up the list?
No, it does not move you up the list. What it does is, on those B&I applications that I talked about or referred to, they may have X number of points, but the office in Carson, the USDA may assign up to 20 additional points if that project is part of a multi-jurisdictional plan, which our comprehensive economic development strategy is. So in that case, directly, you can achieve up to 20 additional points. If you're going as a nonprofit, for example, and you're going to a funding source, maybe in the private sector, a foundation, there again, if you can show that your project application is within or part of a planning process or part of a multi-jurisdictional plan, it makes your application look better, and depending upon that funding agency, they may assign you some extra points based on that.
Okay.
So that's the reason, or the reason to have this project listing. But again, you can also cite your project as meeting one of those goals that are identified in the SEDS. That'll achieve somewhat the same thing.
So it kind of enhances your application. in other
Yes,
words. Okay.
yes.
Thank you. Any more questions for Ron or comments? Ron, thanks for that presentation. I really enjoyed that. I appreciate it.
thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to consent items. Anybody want to pull a consent item? Mr. Lawson?
There's no one who wants to pull an item. I'm going to ask to approve consent items 8.1, 2, and 3.
Okay, Mr. Abbott?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. Move on to general business. 9.1, consideration, discussion, and possible approval. I would just flip this thing. To make plan design changes to the City of Sparks Group Health Plan as recommended by the City of Sparks Group Health Committee, effective January 1st, 2018. Hello there.
Hi.
Welcome.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem and City Council. For the record, I am Jen McCall, HR Analyst for the City of Sparks and Chairperson for the Group Healthcare Committee. I'm here today to ask that you approve changes as recommended by the Group Healthcare Committee. These changes were voted on by the committee at the October 24th, 2017 Group Health meeting. As you know, the City of Sparks provides a self-insured group health plan that includes medical, dental, vision, pharmacy, and life insurance for all of our employees, their dependents, and our retirees. Established through the collective bargaining process, the Group Healthcare Committee discusses cost containment measures, plan design changes, and compliance requirements. The Group Healthcare Committee must then seek City Council approval for any proposed changes. After review, discussion, and a vote by the committee, it was determined that the following changes to the plan will reduce overall plan costs while remaining competitive for our employees and attractive to candidates for employment. I would like to summarize each one of our plan change recommendations and then answer any questions that you may have at the end. The first two items I'd like to address are two items that we have had to debate for quite some time that will help us to address those members utilizing out-of-network services when we have quite a few hospital and physicians in-network. So today, an individual deductible in-network is $200. An out-of-pocket, out-of-network deductible is also $200. A family in-network deductible is $400. An out-of-network family deductible is $400. So as you can see, the deductibles themselves are not deterring use of out-of-network facilities and physicians. The Group Healthcare Committee is proposing that we increase the individual out-of-pocket deductible for the year to $800 and the out-of-network, out-of-pocket deductible to $1,600 for a family. Coinciding with this particular change would also be increasing the out-of-pocket maximum for out-of-network services. So currently, the most a person can spend out-of-pocket, out-of-network is $5,000. The plan then begins paying all charges at 100%. Again, this amount is actually not deterring people from going out of the area for procedures to be done. In 2017, the City of Sparks paid a claim over $70,000 that could have been done in-network in Reno for $5,000. So we are proposing at this time that the out-of-pocket annual maximum increase to $10,000 for an individual and $20,000 for a family. The goal of these proposed increases is to discourage members from seeking out-of-network facilities and physicians that are not contracted with the city. These proposed changes will not affect dependents and retirees living out of the area. I want to reiterate that if any member is on a vacation and has an emergency, they will pay in-network rates, and any member or dependent or retiree that live out of the area, they already have established networks for them, so they too would not be subject to the out-of-network costs. The next item I'd like to introduce to you is the Intercept RX program. The Intercept program is designed to target specialty drug products as defined by Welldyne RX, our pharmacy benefit manager. Year-to-date, specialty drugs have cost the plan nearly $400,000. Under the Intercept RX program, the same claims, if under the Intercept program, would have saved the program $43,799. This is a coupon program in which they look for and seek out coupons that are available on specialty drugs. Welldyne will reach out to members directly to enroll in the specialty program, which is called the Intercept. Members refusing to participate in the Intercept RX program will be responsible for a 40% copay of the cost of the specialty drug. The next item on our list is referred to as a deductible carryover. We still have some archaic plan language that we're working toward changing, and this is one of them. Currently, a member meeting their deductible in the first 9 months of a calendar year will pay a new deductible the next year. That seems to make sense. However, members paying their deductible in the last 90 days of a calendar year do not have to meet a deductible the following calendar year. We roll their deductible. Not only is this benefit not fairly applied to members, depending on when in the year you use your services, but it will save an estimated $2,400 annually just by requiring all members to pay a fresh deductible each calendar year. Currently, the next item I'd like to visit is reduce the back on track visits. We have a back and spine program through Specialty Health that was designed for acute back and spine care problems. The idea was to work with Specialty Health to find treatment through physical therapists, massage therapists, pain management doctors. And if you enrolled in the Specialty Health program, your deductibles and your copays would be waived. We find that 90% of our members with acute back problems do have their issues resolved in 90 days. Unfortunately, we found that 10% of the members have chronic health conditions where other health issues may exist that are actually causing the complications for the back and spine. So after 90 days, we would like the plan document to state that Specialty Health will then assist that member in rolling over to our normal group health plan deductibles and rates for ongoing treatment of their chronic health conditions. The next item on our list is adding a pre-certification for outpatient admissions. Up to this point, if you were to have an inpatient hospital stay, require clinical trials, or have any type of transplant service, you are required to call and get pre-certification. Never have we required anyone to get pre-certification on outpatient surgeries. Pre-certification protects members and the city from expenses that result from receiving services that are not covered, not medically necessary, or are otherwise excluded from coverage under the plan. We've actually found that approximately 3% of our outpatient surgeries are not medically necessary. The pre-certification requirement would ensure medical necessity before the member goes for their procedure. The final two items I would like to present to you today are actually additions to the plan. The first one is called Optomap Retinal Exam. For those of you who visit your VSP doctor, your ophthalmologist or optometrist, you have the option of having a picture taken now of your eye or having the dilation done. Many of us, we pay that $30, $35 because we don't want the eye drops and we don't want to leave all blurry-eyed. So the Group Health Committee did inquire as to how much it would cost the plan if we added this service. It will result in an annual increase of $14,000 to the plan. However, patients will leave the office with vision intact without sensitivity, and Optomap creates a permanent record and allows for future comparisons so you can really monitor eye health. And the last item on our list today for consideration to add to the benefits would be to increase the annual dental benefit maximum. The current plan design allows for an individual annual maximum of $2,500. Due to rising dental costs, the committee feels the plan is more competitive and desirable to current and new employees if the annual maximum is increased to $3,000. This will result in an anticipated plan increase of $38,000. In conclusion, these changes will result in an overall savings of approximately $9,493. May I answer any questions for you today?
Mr. Dare.
You have a couple questions?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. The first one is, what if someone already is seeing somebody out of the state, and so it is a regular thing for them to do? They have a doctor, they have something already moving. Do they have to come with a few weeks, have to now come back here? I'm talking about, you're talking out of network.
That's a good question. If the member has been working with Hometown Health and utilizing these services as part of a letter of agreement, they will continue as is they are today. If it's a new medical procedure after January 1st, the new deductibles and out-of-pockets will apply.
Thank you. And then with the RX program, as part of that, does that mean people have to move to generic? Because a lot of times those coupons, you have your better, I don't know if it's better, I guess that's an opinion, but you have different and a high labeled medicine, and then a lot of times these guys are moving to generic. Is this forcing everyone to move to a generic?
No, sir. Actually, these drugs do not fall into any particular tiered category. There's 60 identified drugs, and these drugs are used for multiple sclerosis, high cancer treatments, hepatitis C, HIV. They're specialty medications. Okay. They're usually purchased and shipped, and they are very costly to the plan. I call this program the generics for specialty, actually, because it finds drugs that are less expensive and or finds coupons for the current drugs that are on the market for these specialty drugs. For example, the hepatitis medication runs plans about $80,000 a month. Gotcha. So what Intercept would do is to find us a coupon to pay that $80,000 a month. All we're asking the employee to do is enroll over the phone when Welldyne calls them and says, we found a coupon, we'd like you to enroll in Intercept.
And then I would say, just when it comes to the rollover portion, I've never heard of such a thing. So I've been on insurance, I've had insurance all my life from different places I've worked. I've never heard of the ability to roll over. I think that's, for me, a no-brainer. That's something that we've been doing that I don't know is typical of anywhere I've ever seen, so, cool. Thank you.
Ms. Bybee?
I just want to, did I just turn it off?
You turn it on. Red is stop.
Red is stop, green is go. I'm left-handed, so I'm usually backwards on all of this. I just want to thank you and the Healthcare Committee for the work you've done in really looking at trying to curb one of the most, tough, necessary benefits, but tough costs to our bottom line and to the city, and the cost for all of us, everyone in this country, of medical care and all of our healthcare needs are just out of control. And so really trying to save some money on the plan. I think all of the changes you've made are making sense, especially when I've talked about this before, coming from the private sector. I'm amazed at the coverage that we have, because my husband and I have not had that through major employers. And I think the city is very, has a great plan to take care of their employees and their retirees. But I appreciate the work that you've done on this to make, to make our costs a little bit better and to improve on that while still maintaining good care for our employees. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. I'll express that to the Group Healthcare Committee.
Thank you.
You know, Jen, and I'm very pleased because for years it seems like we just kept adding and adding, and the committee, had full responsibility. But for the last 2 times, they've actually been cutting things that need to be cut. It works. We just went from 15 to 2,500 in dental, and now we can go to 3,000. Do we need to go higher?
I am not going to recommend that next
Okay.
year. I think we're looking pretty competitive at 3.
No, I like it. I mean, that's good because dentistry is expensive.
It is.
Is that $3,000 per person or for family?
Per person.
Per person, okay. Good stuff. Okay, any more questions or comments? Looking for a motion, Ms. Bybee.
Okay. I move to approve the recommended changes to the City of Sparks Group Health Plan effective at the beginning of the plan year, which is January 1st, 2018.
Okay, we have a motion, Mr. Dare.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. Thanks, Jen.
Thank you
Good
for your
news all
time.
around. Thank you. Okay, 9.2, consideration, discussion, and possibly direction to the Sparks City Attorney's Office to cause to be filed an amicus brief in pending litigation regarding the Little Valley Fire. Allison.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem and City Council, Assistant City Attorney Allison McCormick for the record. I'm here today to ask the City Council to authorize the City Attorney's Office to cause to be filed an amicus brief in litigation regarding the Little Valley Fire. The Little Valley Fire started as a controlled burn due to circumstances. That controlled burn turned into a wildfire that ended up destroying several homes and outbuildings. The property owners and their insurers ultimately sued the Nevada Division of Forestry, or NDF, and the University of Nevada, Reno, because of the damages from that wildfire. NDF and UNR moved to dismiss those claims, and the district court denied those motions to dismiss. Subsequently, the NDF and UNR filed a petition for a writ of mandamus in the Nevada Supreme Court, asking the Nevada Supreme Court to order the district court to dismiss one of those claims. That claim was a takings claim. A takings claim arises when real or personal property is taken for public use without just compensation by a government entity. The district court's decision conflated, in the city attorney's office's view, the law regarding negligence with the law regarding takings claim. The district court essentially concluded that because the controlled burn was for a public use, so was the wildfire. So all of the damages resulting from the wildfire were a taking. This conclusion, if it were adopted by the Nevada Supreme Court, could have wide-ranging financial implications for the city of Sparks, and other government entities within the state of Nevada. It would essentially turn any property damage resulting from a negligent act into a constitutional violation. And for those reasons, it's the city attorney's office's view that the city of Sparks should join in filing an amicus brief on that narrow legal issue to help to clarify the law regarding takings claims and what exactly a public use is. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, any questions or comments?
I should, pardon me, for the record, Chet Adams, City Attorney. I should also alert the council that by agreeing to participate in this brief, we are going to also agree to pay part of the legal fees associated with that. The legal fees at this point in time are not known. In our agenda item, we put up to $5,000. I seriously doubt it will reach that amount, but that's one of the reasons that we're here before you today.
Okay. Mr. Lawson.
I'm still trying to wrap my head around this. So let me give you an example. Tell me if this is kind of goes along the same way. The house next door to mine burns, and because the Sparks Fire Department showed up, and my house caught on fire and burns to the ground also, because the Sparks Fire Department showed up for the original fire, does that mean the city's liable for my house burning down?
Potentially, if the fire spread due to Sparks Fire Department's negligence
And
or
all
their
we did
suppression
was
activities.
respond to a fire at a residence that was none of our negligence. And it, just because we were on the scene now, that liability or that takings provision kicks into effect.
I don't expect that the district court's conclusion could be read that broadly, but say your neighbor's house was on fire and Sparks Fire Department showed up and got out the big hoses and your house sustained major flood damage because of the water that was used in the suppression activities. That activity could arguably be a taking, even though flooding your property was not a public use. I think a clearer example is if a Sparks employee was driving a City of Sparks vehicle and negligently drove that vehicle into your house and caused the roof to collapse and your entire house to fall down. The district court's conclusion would say, well, the employee was on public business and that brings it into the realm of public use, and therefore that's a taking, even though the employee driving so badly that he drove into your house is certainly not a public use.
So that's the part that the takings part, because that opens us up for so much more liability.
Right, it gets around the state tort cap.
And the tort cap is, at this time?
It's $100,000.
So this could potentially mean millions of dollars in
Yes.
judgments or lawsuits for sure.
Yes.
So the amicus brief, tell us exactly what that is. It's a friend of the court filings. We're not telling anyone at the Little Valley Fire that they don't have the right to go after the negligence part of this. We're just saying we do not want the ruling to be based on a takings finding because it affects our liability.
Precisely. The NDF and UNR petition really only addresses the takings issue. So our amicus brief would be even potentially more narrow than that. It would not take any position on the other claims, negligence, gross negligence.
We're not saying that by taking a position on this that we agree or disagree with the homeowners on their filing with their insurance companies or suing the NDF or.
Not at all. It would just be on this narrow legal issue.
Gotta make this so clear because this is such an emotional thing for those people, and I happen to have a friend of mine that lives in that area that it's a very emotional thing for them because there's a lot of homes got lost.
Yes.
So we're not taking a position, we're just saying we don't want this to become a public takings where our liability issues skyrocket.
Right. Our concern is with the legal outcome on this takings claim, not with the ultimate outcome of the lawsuit. not on whether the property owners or their insurers are able to collect any damages on their other claims, but just the interpretation of the Nevada Constitution's takings clause. Next to me is.
I see a familiar face. Mr. Thornley.
Doug Thornley with the law firm of Fenimore Craig. Councilman Lawson, to your point, the proposed amicus brief would not at all take a position on the relative culpability and the relative responsibility of the parties in the Little Valley Fire suit. The purpose of the brief is to distill down what are the elements of a taking in Nevada, and if something is not a taking, like the circumstances here, what is the appropriate process by which to resolve the claim? It's nothing more than that.
You can see how it can be convoluted if you don't understand that. It's a very, very narrow portion of the law that we're looking at.
Right.
So we don't want to be misconstrued in this in any way, which is why I'm taking this time to have it explained very clearly.
And I think just to build on that, Councilman, the brief will be written in a neutral fashion. It will not be entered for or against any of the parties involved in the presently ongoing litigation. It is
And
simply.
I think it's important that the city of Sparks covers ourselves from the liability standpoint, and that's why I'll be approving this. But it's also important to understand that we're not taking a position on the Little Valley Fire at all.
Not at all.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Dare.
Yeah, it would be a precedent is what we're worried about, of something that the same logic that's used over here, bring it over here, we don't want that. I'm ready to make a motion if you would like, sir.
Sir.
I move to authorize Spark City Attorney's Office to file or cause to be filed an amicus brief in the Nevada Supreme Court regarding the Little Valley Fire.
Okay, we have a motion. Ms. Bybee.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I've been asked, we've got 10.1. It's a public hearing item, but Mr. Witt has to leave about 4 o'clock. So if anybody doesn't have an objection, I'd like to move that up to right now. Okay, because I think Armando's going to speak for a while. So Armando, you're up. 10.1. It's a public hearing, consideration and possible adoption of resolution number 3329, approving the sale by the redevelopment agency of the city of Sparks to SWD Partners LLC of a parcel 0.96 acres in size, and that's all I'm going to say.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Smith, members of the City Council. I am Armando Ornelas, the Assistant Community Services Director. This proposed disposition and development agreement, a DDA for short, is in response to direction the City Council provided to the City Manager earlier this year to negotiate an agreement with Silver Wing Development for the sale and redevelopment of the then city-owned parking garage located at 955 C Street, referred to in the DDA as the project property. So here is the project property. On the south, the bottom of the screen is Victorian Avenue. These are the businesses along Victorian Avenue, and then the garage is in the back on C Street. In anticipation of this being considered today, on October 23rd, the City Council approved the transfer of the project property to agency ownership. So the agency has some flexibility that the city does not have in terms of the disposition of property. The developer is proposing to renovate the existing parking garage and to construct a new high-density apartment community referred to as the DECO above the garage. As proposed, the DECO project will include a minimum of 175 and a maximum of 212 apartment units plus various facilities, including a swimming pool, gym, clubhouse, and a lobby. All parking for the residents of the parking garage will be on levels 2 to 4 of the garage, and the developer is being required to park it at a minimum ratio of 1.5 parking spaces per unit. An appraisal of the project property determined it has a market value of $950,000. Per the DDA, as compensation to the agency, the developer will provide the first level of the parking garage, approximately 90 spaces, for a 50-year period as parking for the general public. This right will be secured through recordation upon sale of a deed restriction. The developer will be responsible for all costs associated with maintenance of the garage, of the public parking. The appraiser also prepared a cost-benefit analysis that concludes that the right to use the public parking results in a public benefit of $60,000 per year for 100 spaces. Prorated, this equates to $54,000 a year, or $2.7 million over 50 years for the 90 or so spaces. For purposes of this DDA, the value of the public's right to use public parking has been determined to equal or exceed that $950,000 value, and as a result, the project is exempt from the prevailing wage requirements of NRS 279-500. With regard to the parking, from the outset of discussions with the developer about this project, city staff has taken the need to have sufficient public parking downtown for downtown businesses and residents very seriously. The city engineer commissioned a downtown parking analysis prepared by Traffic Works LLC that over several months and through several iterations analyzed the existing and planned parking demand and supply downtown. The results of the analysis indicate that with the addition of the DECO project, the number of existing and planned parking spaces in the study area is projected to exceed the number of parking spaces needed for future peak demand by approximately 18%. So in other words, supply will equal 118% of future peak demand per this analysis. City Engineer John Erickson and Mr. Lauren Chilson of Traffic Works are here if the council wishes to dive into the parking analysis further. A couple of other DDA terms. The proposed DDA includes an early termination date, which is essentially the deadline for the start of construction of October 31st, 2018, and an absolute deadline of March 30th, 2021. The developer will also be required to obtain temporary public parking, 90 spaces, in an off-site location within 1/4 mile of the project property while the parking garage is closed for construction. So, we anticipate that there's going to be that disruption in terms of the availability of that parking, and so the developer has to look off-site and provide public parking, and they're discussing that with, I think, Marnell Gaming. In terms of goals and policy objectives, the proposed sale of the project property represents an opportunity to continue furthering the redevelopment plan and the revitalization of downtown Sparks by promoting residential development in the Victorian Square area. As discussed in the staff report, sale of the project property would also be consistent with the City of Sparks comprehensive plan and would advance several major goals of that plan. For these reasons, city staff is recommending that the City Council take 2 actions. The first is the adoption of the attached resolution to the staff report that makes certain findings and approves the agency's sale of the project property. And then the second requested action is approval on behalf of the city of the development agreement. Mr. Witt is here, and I believe would like to show you the latest elevations for the project. So with that, I will conclude my presentation.
Okay, any questions for Armando? Ms. Bybee?
No, sorry.
Mr. Abbott?
Yeah, do we lease any spots to any of the businesses from the parking garage? Like, say, Victorian Saloon or Cantina? Do we lease any of those to them?
We do not lease those spaces. What we have downtown is a parking district.
Mm-hmm.
And so basically, and that actually lives inside our zoning code. And what it does is essentially is it exempts the business downtown within the parking district from having to provide parking for the first 10,000 square feet of that use. So, it was contemplated when it was originally created that at some point in time we would potentially charge businesses for the parking that they lack, if you will. But there's no lease of those spaces in the garage to any of the businesses.
Mr. Lawson?
How do we deal with the deliveries in the alleyway between the parking garage and the existing businesses during construction?
Well, that'll be something, there is a provision in the DDA that basically says that the developer is obligated to coordinate with those businesses, and the city has a direct role in coordinating of that. So it's going to be very intense construction downtown, and so we're going to have to make sure that, trash can be picked up and that deliveries can be made to those businesses. It may be that they have to be made.
So the alleyway will more than likely be open most of the time?
I don't know that it will be open most of the time. It's a very narrow alley. It may be that, for example, we'll have to arrange for deliveries to be made through the front doors of those businesses.
Mr. Dare?
My questions refer to some of the parking, and that might be more John over here, but what I think when we do the count, are we including the Tesla being down there? How do we know when since we've been doing this, it seems like we have other people parking there, that agreement might move or be at another place. And so I know we're doing a count. Is that, you understand my question on that? Because I know they've been down there doing some park ride share thing.
Well, I'll address the question about the Tesla Park and Ride specifically. What we did in the agreement with Tesla is that we essentially granted them the right to use the area. Could I have the overhead again, please? So this area here along C Street, as you may recall, there was formerly an RTC station here on the north side of the garage. And there is essentially an inset here where the RTC buses used to pick up and drop off passengers. What we have allowed Tesla to do is essentially to use that area as a shuttle stop, if you will. And so presumably, people who are using that shuttle, that park and ride, are parking in the garage. But it was only for a year period. We always told them it was temporary. We told them that this project was in the pipeline potentially, and frankly, it's revocable with 30 days notice. So this was always the Tesla arrangement was always contemplated to be temporary.
Well, my question actually has to do with our count as well, though. As we're doing the count, we've been doing this count for a while, but Tesla's been there. So if that's not there, how do we know our count is accurate? I know Tom over here came and gave his thing and showed his numbers, but part of that might be the numbers might be because of some of that. We just need to get a handle on the count numbers, and obviously I think you've seen in our other voting we're pretty excited about the idea, but we also don't want to create something that is it has to be usable. All that has to work.
Yeah, I think at this point it would be appropriate for me to look to the city engineer and Mr. Chilson to address questions about the parking analysis.
John?
Mayor Pro Tem, City Council members, John Erickson, City Engineer for the record. We went through and did an extensive parking analysis, not only for this project, but for the entire downtown district. And with me today is Lauren Chilson with Traffic Works. Lauren was involved from the beginning of the analysis when we looked at the west portion of the downtown, and then we went off and did the east. Lauren and his team went through and we used an ITE parking demand analysis. We went through and we validated the count information that ITE provided us. And with that, I will hand this off to Mr. Chilson to answer any questions.
Good afternoon, Lauren Chilson, Traffic Works. You're speaking specifically of the Tesla spaces. That's about 10 spaces in front of that building. The validation counts that we performed and the occupancy counts include that 10 spaces. So we did note what was going on there. And that's, ultimately out of, when you look at the grand scheme of build out in Victorian Square, what you find is there's going to be on the order of 1,500 spaces. And so those 10 are a very minute number of that and don't significantly affect that 18% that Armando mentioned.
I've heard that they were asked to park on the third and fourth floor, that there's more than 10 cars that they're using. When it came to their parking for the day, I don't think it was 10 spots, unless I could be mistaken. I mean, you obviously are the man, so.
So we conducted those occupancy counts the very peak time of the district, which actually is a Saturday night, in fact, when the businesses and the local establishments are in full swing. Other times of the day, the parking demand is actually much lower. That's based on the time of use the time of day use for all of those varying businesses downtown. In fact, the vast majority of them are food and drink establishments. They peak in the evenings. So what's happening with Tesla during the day is not an indicator of the true highest peak demand. So it's covered, in fact, by those other peak periods, which are significantly higher.
So with the parking, then the numbers you have, and I said Tom Young we have something on record as well. He did his own kind of count. There seems to be a discrepancy in the two of saying how many spaces we need. That's what I'm just trying to come to an answer a little bit. So as we approve and move forward, that we're looking ahead to see what And really, we're moving forward to an awesome thing. So we see that, but what unintended consequences are we causing? And if we're not watching those, that's what I'm asking.
You know, I think the thing that's important to note is that, you know, when this project is built out, you know, it's going to be a walkable type project in community. Today, where people might park in the C Street garage, may have to park over at the theater garage and walk over. But with the vision that Mr. Witt has for downtown, and as well as the city of Sparks, there's going to be a lot of different venues downtown. And so there's going to be a lot of things to be able to do. And so I just think it's going to be walkable. We've analyzed this. We've determined that there's adequate storage or available parking of that upwards of 18% when this thing is completely built out. People are just going to have to be able to walk a little bit, and I think that's a good thing.
Ms. Bybee.
Following up on that, as you did your traffic study and you look at the full build-out, did you look at, I mean, we know what the uses of what's there today and even what the housing coming, but as you add the other component of our commercial and our retail side, which would be restaurants and offices and hopefully art galleries and some really amazing things happening, did you look at projecting full build-out with those items in mind of what our needs would be at that point? Kind of guessing because we don't know exactly what will be there.
Absolutely. We looked at full build-out of the entire Victorian Square redevelopment area, which includes a number of new housing units potentially, all the retail spaces, reuse of vacant lots, for example, and every other thing that's anticipated there to make sure that it's covered. And even at that full build-out of everything expected, we have a surplus of parking.
And how many spots did you say we have 1,500 or we need?
At
1,500?
full build-out, there'd be a little over 1,500 spaces total in that downtown parking district.
Does that include the residential parking that's provided, say in Fountain House and Bridges?
That includes only spaces that would be in their overflow. So they have their own responsibility for being self-parked.
Right.
This would be really what's public parking, if you will, because there's nearly 700 spaces in just the theater garage, so that's about half of it, but you add up everything else.
So 1,500 would be public then? Okay, thank you.
Did we want to get Mr. Witt down here to talk before we go to public comment?
Hey, hop in.
Sure.
On them real quick for you guys. So it was 1,500 public, and then what would be our surplus be? I guess on like a Friday or Saturday night, or
At the peak, again, Saturday, 7 p.m. kind of time frame, we'd be on the order of 260 spaces of surplus.
in the Victorian parking zone.
In that parking zone.
In that district, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Witt, come on down. How you doing, Jay?
Hi. Mayor Pro Tem, members of the council, I'm Jay Witt, Silver Wing Development. And I may be able to add a little bit of light to, and by the way, I appreciate the adjustment. I've never asked for it before. Got a kind of a medical procedure late in the day here I got to go make, so I didn't want to miss it. That being said, I would like to lend a little bit more color onto this. I'm meeting with Tesla actually on Wednesday. I've been talking to them. We do want to, I think they're seeing the light, as I've seen it, that this area as it builds out needs to be a hub for them for transportation out to the east. So we have actually, what we have right now is a 30-day agreement. And they're looking for more of a longer term, how do we deal with this within the plan? So that actually is scheduled for 10 o'clock Wednesday morning. So I'll be able to give you more information after that, or I'll pass it back to Armando. As far as the number of spaces in public parking, again, I've said this before. I know, this is a very drivable area, Northern Nevada, but at the same time, when people are moving to this area, a lot of the patrons of the merchants here and so on and so forth, as well as people going to Tesla, are not going to be using additional parking spaces. In other words, they're not going to park their car in our space and then park their car again in a public space. They're going to go use the merchant, from their housing unit. The same thing goes with if you're a Tesla user or Tesla employee or Panasonic are going to switch, you're going out east. If we're doing shuttles out there from this area, which is our goal, those folks, in many instances, yes, they may still be girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, wife, what you may have per dwelling unit, but at the same time, that will eliminate the need for a commute vehicle. And so you're probably going to have one vehicle where you typically would have two, because their commute is, they basically walk a block to where the shuttle is, and they're going back and forth on that basis, and they're home, which is kind of what again, let's not miss the big picture here. That's what we're trying to, that's the goal that we're trying to achieve here, is to create a walkable density, high density downtown area that has multiple uses, that has access and convenience off the freeway. But and sure, if you have a doctor's appointment like I do, or if you have something going on the weekend, you have that second car, but you only have one car, maybe instead of two. And I think that's going to be part of our marketing with a lot of the folks, and has been. But unfortunately, to date, Tesla really hasn't gotten a full-scale shuttle program going out there to the extent that they need. And that's shown up pretty heavily by the traffic that's going out 80 right now.
Any questions for Jay? Ms. Bybee?
I just have one. I mean, the project is going to be spectacular. I fully support the whole concept of what it's doing for that garage that badly needs improvement, and support everything that we're doing. The fact that we have this traffic study that gives us numbers that kind of reassure me that that we are going to have parking for Tom and for the other businesses down there is important. And the only thing, a little bit of a concern, and I know public parking is public parking, but your residents that will be parking and going through a gated entrance in that garage on the upper levels, if they have, whether it's themselves or family, or say they have two cars, is them, and I know you're going to try to encourage them not to park on that first floor, because I really feel those 90 spots on the first floor, I really want to make sure that the businesses who've been there through this whole recession and have been here in Victorian Square, that all of those businesses still have the parking. And I know it's public parking, so people have a right to park there. And I understand that you will try to make sure that your residents understand their parking is the secured, and if we can try to keep that more for people that are going to the other businesses, that would be great. But I know that.
Well, for one, we've already stated that we will put that in the lease, and we will penalize people that we find parking in that area, number one. Secondly, I've suggested to Mr. Young, and we haven't really come to a conclusion on this, but I felt at least, on some random basis at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, we should tow that area. Or unless they have a sticker that they represent a tenant there or something of that nature. That way, all you have to do is do that a couple times, and you will reinforce the fact that you should be down there. So I mean, I'm not going to do that with just out of the blue. We'll have a discussion with everybody involved, but we need to come up with some methodology that basically reinforces. And then we need, of course, signage as well. I think signage is important. That patrons of this following merchants kind of only, kind of tow zone at the entrances, I think is also probably important. I think Mr. Young probably ought to do the same thing on his lot, as I mentioned to him.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Abbott.
Yeah, you had a meeting with some of the local business owners, I think, early November.
Correct.
Overall, can you just kind of say what their feelings were? I wasn't able to make it, just.
Well, I mean, Tom was there. I think in general, I think they were, they like what we're doing. I think some of the concluding comments. I mean, Tom's concerned about parking. I understand that. We're going to continue to work on that with him. But the essence of was stated by, I forgot which gentleman, but he said, bottom line is, what you're talking about is short-term inconvenience for long-term benefit, and we're basically all in on that. And that's really is going to be the point. We understand the point earlier about the alleys. We plan to improve that alley so it doesn't look like an alley. So in other words, we want to take down all the lines and poles, even though it's not a condition of what we're doing. We want to take those down so it's more aesthetic, both for walking and for deliveries. So it will still be a delivery area, but it will also be, if you're walking down there to the, any of the stores, it has a better presentation to it. I mean, the presentation starts when you park your car and you start walking. And that's what we need, as far as the image of the city and the Victorian Square and the merchant. So I think we need to be thinking that as we go through this process.
Okay, Mr. Lawson. Oh, do you have another one, Donald?
I have one more quick
Go
one.
ahead, go ahead.
Are you gonna knock the garage down? Or are you
No.
just building, you're building on using it?
We're doing a very, very complicated retrofit on the garage.
Okay, thank you.
And a podium on top.
Mr. Lawson.
Thank you for, number one, making sure we have the parking down there. We do not want to be a midtown where it's difficult and it's actually driving people away from that area because of the lack of parking. But every time I see you in a public venue, I have to express my concern that we keep the motorcycle parking.
Well, actually, Tom, in my email to Tom today, when I responded to one of his concerns, one of the things we plan on doing is there are some kind of oddball, we'll say, car park locations that could be efficiently made into motorcycle parking. And as I mentioned to staff, we do plan on doing both in the public area as well as the private area of the garage.
Perfect.
Any other questions for Jay? Thank you, Jay. Armando, or do you have anything else to add before we go to public comment?
Lauren Chilson, Traffic Works. I need to clarify one statement that I made, just so that we're all abundantly clear on the facts. The 1,500 spaces that I mentioned, that's the totality of the spaces that were included in the district. They are not all public. For example, Great Basin has a private parking lot that's about 40 spaces. That's included in the analysis because their use is already included in the analysis, but it's not truly, public parking in that it's controlled. So I just want to be clear on that point that yes, we've covered all the spaces that would be used by all the users of the spaces within that district, and that's what the 1,500 spaces is. If I've convoluted it more, just say so, and I'll try again. But I'm certain that we have surplus, so I just want to be clear about the number.
Thank you.
And I should also speak to the temporary period. We think that the garage will effectively be down 6 to 9 months. 6 is probably everything going right, which never does. So I would err towards a 9. As I have provided staff, we do have kind of a agreement, informal agreement that's been confirmed and by email by Marnell's counsel that we have use of those lots, except for during special event periods, right across the way from where all the merchants are. So.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Armando? Thanks, Jay.
Yeah, I think, do we want to quickly speak to the elevations? Or?
They're being looked for.
Oh, okay.
I didn't have anything further to add, Mayor Pro Tem Smith.
You just want to show us the elevations?
As soon as the clerk can locate them, we will show them to you.
Is that going to be today?
Hopefully so.
Did you see
Just
that look?
just tricking.
You're liable to get beat up here.
I know.
So when we do see the elevation today, I want to first warn you that the focus has not been on making pretty cartoons for y'all. We've been working a lot on the design so we can make this economically feasible. So we really haven't, well, the elevation I think is pretty final in terms of the elevation. The colors are just like, we threw it against the wall. It's not, but I will tell you right now, what you're going to see are not going to be the final colors, because I don't like either one of them. The brown is it's just too dated. I was looking for more of a crimson color in that, and the blue is just too Miami Beach, I think, for the area. But that being said, it will show you color and texture areas on the elevation how they will change if we get the elevation up. So that was really the point of the elevation. And I will say that the concept of the deco is kind of a temporary name right now, but the concept is to have an Art Deco theme throughout the project on all the common areas and the exterior. And like Elsewhere, we do plan, we will be lighting it up at night. Building will be lit up at night, all the prominent areas. There we go, okay. Okay, so this is the back. We've, Tom, I apologize, we pancaked your store there, but in microbrewery. But we did that just for clarity, so you could see the first level. So this is the back looking south, and one of the advantages of this site we'll have going up this high, even though it's very, very costly, is the fact that has unobstructed views to the Sierras from here. And the upper floor is, you barely can see it, but actually the upper floor will have about 11 to 12 foot ceiling. It'll be a penthouse floor. There'll be a lock off on the elevator. The glass plate will be taller. The finishes will be much more higher end. And there'll be a lot more security and privacy up there. And there'll be less units. Units are actually wowed out. So we've lost units on the upper floor to gain kind of space for the units that we have. So down below, you see on the podium deck, you see to the left side is a pool deck. And that does work within the confines of the sloping of the garage. And on the right side, that was just a artist rendering. But basically, that's going to be more of a park kind of a landscaped area that will be just a place to kind of hang out. In between those two, there's a mistake in the elevation. That's a glass curtain wall that will be on that back area between those two outdoor spaces. The left side will be the gym, and the right side will be the clubhouse. So when you're working out or you're in the clubhouse, you'll have a ceiling of glass, basically looking out towards the Sierras. So those are kind of from that side, and then you can see the garage. This is a good example that I'm not going to accept that kind of chocolate brown. It's just too dated. But again, the point here is that the upper levels of that brown is going to be a different material, and those are kind of where you're going to see the color breaks on whatever we do, as you see the lighter color to the off-white. So that's the back side. I'm not sure if we have the. So this is the front side. Again, you can see kind of some of the, we call it corbels, whatever, the kind of Art Deco look at the top. All that will help be backlit at night. And the entrance at the very bottom there, you see the side entrances. That goes into the lobby area and the administrative area, which will then rise up to the upper deck. Let me see. There'll be access on as it is right now. The same access in the garage on the west side, and the exits will all be on the east side of the garage. So that's. I mean, we're still working with a lot, and I don't see there was supposed to be more vertical design on this. So. We're still working with a lot of just the detail, but we're at our drawing level right now. It's at about 35%, 40%. So we're not entirely there yet, but it gives you a sense of where we're trying to go anyway. And again, another point here is we're going to have about 35% studios on this, so those also will demand less parking than a 1 or 2 bedroom.
Just the two? Just the 2 slides?
No, I think there. Oh, it's just 2. Oh, you don't have the blue one.
I do have the blue.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to open up public comment right now.
Okay.
Anybody in the public want to speak? Tom, come on down.
Again, Tom Young, Great Basin Brewing Company for the record and things too. And I do really think this is a really cool project, and I'm just excited to see it develop and things there too. And I just haven't, I'm still a little bit uncomfortable about the parking situation. We talked about the Tesla guys and things too. When I was out counting cars, it was the summer, which isn't necessarily peak time there too. And the Tesla people were not parking there. And I also I'm confused about the 10 spaces because right now, the Tesla leisurely is using, but right now it seems to me a bus shows up at about 7 o'clock at night, and a whole lot of people get out there. There's a whole lot more than 10 cars coming off that thing, so it's impossible to do a parking study at this point because of that many people coming out, and the garage is certainly underutilized. I think it's a great thing, but on the, getting back to the east side, I simply went out there and counted the museum lot, the lot behind Great Basin, the parking garage, and generally on most of those busier nights, which Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday nights, the Great Basin lot's full, the museum lot's mostly full, and the parking garage on the busy nights had about 150 cars in it now. So I'm thinking if 90 is okay in the future, and we haven't really added that, I guess all those excess spots in the parking study are going to have to go to the theater lot, if that's how I understand the parking studies, that that is where all the other parking's going. I'm also, working with, with Mr. Witt, and I see of all the oversized vehicles that are living in the apartment parking in the Great Basin lot, but we'll deal with that separately, but I'm working on that too. So I haven't had a chance to really look at the parking study, but I'm a little confused that we have this many excess parking spaces unless we're really considering the central parking lot in front of the theater, and that would be certainly something I didn't look at when I was just doing my little rough survey. So, but it's a cool project, and I'm looking forward to getting it rolling. So.
Thanks, Tom. Anybody else in the audience wishing to speak? Bill, come on down, Bill.
Tom, you could sell them your lot and then put more parking garage there.
3 levels.
Put more apartments above it.
Welcome, Bill.
Thank you. I'm just trying to figure out how many units they're gonna have. And if there's, I don't know how many units they're gonna have, first of all.
In the new building?
Yeah.
209 right now.
How many?
209.
209. So that could possibly be 400 cars, right?
Yeah, 1.5 ratio.
300 cars.
300 cars? 1.5, okay. The other thing I didn't like to hear is, because I'm a senior citizen, is I'm gonna have to walk farther? What is this? I don't know, folks.
You're gonna have to buy a new pair of shoes.
Yeah, I know, I'll have to buy a new pair of shoes, but really, it's a concern. Now, I'm sure this parking lot's gonna have elevators in it and all the stuffing for people who are my age and older or younger. I hope it does. Okay, that's what I was getting at. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Anybody else in the audience wishing to speak at this time? Okay, seeing none, we'll bring it back to the council. Are there any other questions or comments? Mr. Abbott.
Yeah, so I'll make the motion, but a quick comment. I would just stress to staff and to Jay about with all the construction going behind the businesses and us starting our streetscape in the front. I know it's gonna be some rough times. I just want it to be as smooth as possible for our businesses that have been down there through thick and thin with us. So with that, I'd like to make my motion. I believe we'll make two different motions.
Yes.
So I move to adopt resolution number 3329, approving the redevelopment agency sale of the parking garage at 955 C Street to SWD Partners LLC.
Okay, we have a motion on number 1. Ms. Bybee?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Come on, baby. There we go. Passes unanimously. Okay, part 2, Donald?
I move to approve the disposition and development agreement with SWD Partners LLC.
Mr. Dare?
And I'll second that one.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. Thank you. Good job. Okay, we're going to move back now.
Motorcycle parking.
Bicycle too.
Thanks, Jay. Okay, we're going to go talk about the CAFR. 9.3, consideration, discussion, and possible acceptance of the city's comprehensive annual financial report, better known as the CAFR, for fiscal year 2016 and 17. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem and members of the council. For the record, Jeff Kronk, Financial Services Director. And with me, I have Debbie Kinder, who is our city's accounting manager. And also with us is Kristen, where is she? Oh, there she is, who's representing Eide Bailey, our external auditor. So, if there's any questions for her regarding the audit findings, you can certainly ask them. But I just want to take this time, just very briefly, honestly, just to say thank you to a lot of people, because this is a good day. I enjoy this day. It's one of the 2 good days I think I have where I get to close the book on something. It doesn't happen very often, right? And even though we're some 5+ months into the new fiscal year, this is the close of the fiscal 17 year. And so this represents the audit and the final, compliance reporting that we have. And so anyway, it's kind of a fun day for me just to kind of turn the page, if you will, and we can get on into, the next year's budget cycle. There's always new things, right? But we get to at least, say goodbye to 2017. But before I turn it over to Debbie to run through what we're presenting to you today, I just want to say thank you, take this opportunity just to acknowledge and say thank you to the dedicated employees that you have in financial services. They work tirelessly, to ensure that the public's assets really are being managed well. And but it's not just them. It's really an attitude that I've discovered throughout the city. So, I want to say thank you to the department directors and the managers and really all city employees under the direction of our city manager, Steve Driscoll, and then also following your policies. I mean, it's a tone at the top, if you will, that you really set to support what we do and to ensure that the public can have confidence that their public dollars are being handled and managed financially well. So anyway, that's what this document is, and I kind of want to draw a quick, compare and contrast, if you will, to the other document that we present to you in the spring relating to our budget. That's a much more user-friendly document, if you will. This is a technical document. It's a compliance document. It really is there to show and give the public, again, some confidence that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. There's a lot of laws that we have to follow, whether it's, accounting regulations or Nevada statutes or administrative code or just, good solid fiscal, practices. It's all in here. That's what this document is really all about. There's a lot of detailed information in here, not very user-friendly. That's why we created that document in the spring, to really give you a better idea of how we can make decisions. And that's what that budget document is all about. This isn't really really good for a decision-making document, if you will, or a document that provides, a foundation to make decisions with, but it's more of a compliance and technical document. So if you think of those 2 documents in that light, I think it might help us to, understanding really what this beast is. It takes a long time and a lot of work to create something like this. A lot of good information. So with that, I wanted to turn it over to Debbie and let her run through just kind of what she really coordinates the audit, the external audit process, puts in an amazing amount of hours in order to get this to this point. So I wanted her to run through kind of what got us here and what we're asking for you, because again, we need some specific things for you to approve today. So with that, I'll turn it over to Debbie.
Hi, good afternoon. We're presenting this for you to approve the financial report and also 2 plans of corrective action that are associated with it as a compliance document. We need to fix our non-compliance issues. Our first report of violations will be sent to the state, and we had spent $39,000 more. It's hard to say spent. We posted more expenditures than we had budgeted, but it was due to depreciation, and that was in our motor vehicle fund, so wasn't really cash out the door, but it was over budget. That corrective action plan is to more conservatively budget our depreciation. The other corrective action plan we have is the federal corrective action plan. There are 2 financial findings on that plan and 1 grant finding. The 2 financial findings are the same 2 we have every year that say we don't prepare our own CAFR. We save a little money and have Eide Bailey prepare that for us. And we also think that our senior staff in the finance department is capable of posting journal entries, and we don't have a second eye that looks at those. So that's the second financial finding. The third one is a grant finding that said our prevailing wage reports were not filed timely, and it is a street project that occurred in the summer of 16. So you saw the exact same finding last fiscal year. We bridged 2 fiscal years on one project, and so the finding is repeated. And after you approve this and the corrective action plans, we will distribute them to the interested parties. On a side note, Kristen told us today that she won't be here anymore, so after 27 years of seeing her, this is her last season. If you have questions for her, you've got to get them in now.
Are you retiring? Okay. Well, you have been around a long time, that's for sure. Good luck. Thank you.
Okay, I'll open it up for any questions you might have.
Okay, questions or comments? Okay, Mr. Dare.
I'd say thank you too. I actually tried to read that document. When it came through, I said I was gonna print it up and read it, and I did it. I usually read a lot. I started reading them all. What? So you're right. Actually, I agree with you. That's not really for us as much. But with that said, I say thank you, but I can make a motion whenever we want to.
Okay, I need a motion to accept the report.
So I move to accept the comprehensive annual financial report and approve the plans of corrective action for fiscal year 2016, 2017 as presented, and authorize the financial service director to distribute the CAFR, the CAFR, to interested parties and to the GFOA for award consideration.
Mr. Abbott.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Very much. Okay, 9.4, consideration, discussion, and possible approval of a contract AC 5430 to Triumph Electric Incorporated to remove and replace Motor Control Center MCC 6 at the Truckee Meadows Water Reclamation Facility in the amount not to exceed $396,100.
Good afternoon,
Gentlemen.
Mayor Pro Tem and council members. For the record, Kim Labor, Maintenance Manager at the Truckee Meadows Water Reclamation Facility. And with me today is Jerry Kinry. Jerry's the electrical crew supervisor out at Tumworth. And so 9.4 is a request for you to approve a contract with Triumph Electric in the amount of $396,100 to remove and replace Motor Control Center number 6 out at the plant. You can think of a motor control center as like a breaker panel at home, but like everything else out at the treatment plant, it's substantially bigger. It's roughly 6 foot tall, about 25 feet long, and about 2 feet deep. And each of the breakers in this is approximately 2 foot square, and they're typically 480 volt. A lot of them are 50 and 100 amp breakers. This MCC was originally installed in 1979 and is going on 39 years old. Typical equipment of this nature has a lifespan of 25 to 30 years, so we've got a lot of good use out of this MCC. We're starting to experience a few failures, and we're finding that parts and breakers are now obsolete for this, so we're looking forward to getting this replaced before we have a major failure. Typically, motor control centers are like your breaker at home. They're substantially bigger, and we have one in each facility. This particular MCC controls our thickened waste activated sludge. It's an important process out at the plant, so it's important that we move forward and get this fixed. The engineer's estimate for this was $380,000. Triumph Electric was at $396,100, so fairly close to the engineer's estimate. We have money in our budget for this project. And before I open it up for any questions, I'd like to thank Mr. Marin for his assistance in getting this project out on the street and bid. So with that, I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Questions or comments? How many of these units do we have? Is this the only one?
No, each facility in each building has an MCC, so I think there's roughly
33.
Wow. Are they all that old?
Well, some of them, some of the older ones have already been replaced. There's a lot of newer ones that have come on board with new additions out at the plant. As part of the Reno CIP, they're going to do an assessment of all the MCCs out at the plant and potentially make this a Reno CIP. That's probably maybe a year to 2 years out. And this particular MCC, we really needed to move on and get it replaced. So we're doing this internally in the operating budget, but we're looking forward to potentially doing some more with the Reno CIP.
So this is the total price, this is not Sparks' price.
This particular project is coming out of the operating budget, so it will, as part of the operating budget, typically 2/3 of the operating budget is paid by Reno, and typically roughly a third
Okay.
is paid by Sparks.
All right. Any other questions, comments? Looking for a motion. Mr. Abbott.
I move to approve a contract to Triumph Electric, Inc. to remove and replace Motor Control Center, MCC 6, at the Truckee Meadows Water Reclamation Facility in an amount not to exceed $396,100.
Ms. Bybee.
Second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously.
Okay,
Let's
thank
keep
you.
those other ones
All
going.
right, we're going to be on them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, 9.5, consideration, discussion, and possible approval of interlocal cooperative agreement, AC 5432, with the Regional Transportation Commission of Washoe County for signal timing. Amber.
Mayor Pro Tem, members of City Council, for the record, I'm Amber Sosa, the Transportation Manager. Before you today for consideration, discussion, and possible approval of this interlocal cooperative agreement for the Signal Timing 5 project. The agreement is with the RTC, the Regional Transportation Commission. With this agreement, the City of Sparks will provide staff to the RTC to assist them in implementing new signal timing on specific corridors and specific areas of the city. The agreement's not to exceed $25,000, and it allows the RTC to reimburse us.
Okay, any questions or comments? Mr. Lawson.
So where are we looking at doing this coordination? Is it mostly McCarran, or are we looking at other areas of Sparks?
I know one that's come up that's been pretty hot and heavy lately is the Pyramid Corridor with the completion of the Pyramid McCarran project. It's caused a little bit of change in the signal
Just
timing.
move the problem down a mile to Sullivan Lane.
Just make a different adjustments. I know one that was done under the previous one was Vista. So there are different corridors that they study at different times, working with UNR to, unfortunately, sometimes what you see on paper is a little bit different in real life. That's where we come in to assist. So it's kind of dynamic in how it changes and where the needs are for new timing and studies.
So I was looking for a map and see where these were. We don't have that at this time, or?
No, I do not have that at this time.
I'd be interested to know what that is, because that is probably next to other issues, traffic and movement of traffic along McCarran, and my word is a huge topic of conversation.
A lot of times there's corridors that are identified to be studied, and then they might get put off, for instance, if there's a big construction project on it, not a good time to retime it. Different things, that's why I said it's kind of dynamic, but I absolutely can get you that list.
You heard about there might be a school going in there too.
I heard a thing or two about that.
That's a rumor, but.
Absolutely, no, I can get you.
That should affect the traffic over there also.
Sure.
All right, thank you.
And then just for public information, the Pyramid McCarran intersection is now open, which is changing all the traffic patterns. So it's going to take them a while to get those signals right. So they asked for just a couple weeks' patience, and we'll go from there.
We are actively working on that,
They're
yes.
working on it as we speak, that's right. Okay, any other questions or comments? Looking for a motion. Ms. Bybee.
I move to approve the interlocal cooperative agreement with the Regional Transportation Commission for the Signal Timing 5 project in an amount not to exceed $25,000.
Mr. Dare.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. Thank you, Amber.
Thank you.
Okay, 9.6. Consideration, discussion, and possible approval of the city manager to prepare a letter for the letters for the mayor's signature endorsing and supporting the Team Nevada delivers public-private partnership applications to the United States Department of Transportation and Federal Aviation Administration. Mr. Driscoll.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, members of the council. This is kind of an exciting item. We currently have a drone development company that is housed in Reno that is looking at doing a test project that requires a license from the FAA. There's only going to be 5 of these licenses in the entire United States. And so there's partnering going on to have the strongest possible application. The program that we're talking about is kind of twofold. One is on the commercial side, where we see home delivery via drone. That's part of it. The second part of it is more specific to something that we, the city, would use in having AEDs, the defibrillators, actually attached to a drone and stationed in various places throughout the entire valley. And depending on calls for service, could actually dispense that drone to go directly to a location, get there faster than REMSA or one of the fire services could get there. So this is something that that the company Flirty is an international company that's actually housed here. And so one of the things that they're doing is working with different partners. They're already working with REMSA on AED. They've proven that it can work. And then it's just a matter of how to make it successful on a grander scale. So what the ask is here is there's an application going out to the FAA later this week. And we're trying to make that application as absolutely strong as possible. It requires a specific jurisdiction be a sponsor. And so with Flirty being in the City of Reno agreed and has already passed a resolution to be the city sponsor of this application. And then to strengthen that application is having letters of support from other jurisdictions, of which that's what we're asking for here. So what we're hoping to do is have your approval to have from the council a letter of support signed by the mayor on your behalf that would be part of the application. Also, over time, a couple things will happen. It may not be part of the original application, but it will be secondary, is where the fire department and the police department will be given some of the tech specs for the project as to what's been going through and how would it help law enforcement, how would it help fire and rescue EMS from that standpoint. We already know on the EMS, the biggest one is the cardiac piece. In addition to that, there is an ability for us to actually sign a participation agreement that says we are willing to be part of the team for the testing base. That is something that, since it's operational, that I would be able to sign on your behalf if you were to approve this high level of support for this project. So there's quite a bit going on, quite a bit of it's short term to get us into the curve. We believe that Flirty as a company and the project as designed and being applied for, if you will, is very, very strong, and there's no reason to believe we won't be successful. The company itself is well positioned. They just recently received some additional venture capital funding to help with this project. So funding's not an issue. It's all going to be done privately. And by us participating, it allows the company in their tests to have the largest possible range that they can have, where they would be actually having tests put drones on the ground inside the city of Sparks underneath this special license. And so with all of the work that's being done at the university, all the work that's being done out at Stead Airport with unmanned crafts right now, which includes NASA being involved and the FAA, this is a wonderful opportunity for a company that's here. And while they weren't originated here, they're certainly growing here. So we consider them to be a homegrown company. And I think this is some wonderful opportunities. So what I'm hoping that you will do is allow the city to have its name associated with this project, both from letters of support as well as potential teaming up with different components inside the city. With that, I'll answer any questions.
Any questions or comments for Mr. Driscoll? Mr. Dare.
I think it sounds pretty incredible, actually, from on the health side, some of the things that can happen on that portion. Then I even just, my brain starts thinking of all the different things, even for our police, maybe getting somebody there camera-wise to see what's going on, if there's a call, all that kind of stuff. It's kind of exciting to see. It's also a little movie, kind of scary. It's kind of interesting to think about. But, or Taco Bell for Ed, for Mr. Councilman Lawson. Yeah, Taco Bell actually as
You
well.
could deliver Taco Bell right to your door.
That's true, that's true.
Uber Eats.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, just on that, there are currently agreements with almost a dozen national corporations that are here in town that will participate in the testing component and would eventually be one of the suppliers for retail activity. And so Taco Bell's not out of line. It may not be the ones on the
I may
first
never
part
have
of
to
it,
leave my house
but,
again.
but there's a lot of really good things.
They did win the restaurant wars, you know, in
Yes.
that one movie, I can't remember the name of it.
So
Any
good.
other questions or comments? Ms. Bybee?
I'm ready to make a motion.
Okay.
Because I do support, this is exciting, super exciting for a whole new industry. Again, expanding our economic base in the region to see just one more industry that's the future, that's now, and part of it coming to Northern Nevada. So fully support it. With that, I'll make a motion. I move to direct the city manager to prepare a letter for the mayor's signature to endorse and support the application being prepared and submitted by Team Nevada Delivers to the United States Department of Transportation and the Federal Aviation Administration for designation as a select participant in the Unmanned Aircraft Systems Integration Pilot Program.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Mr. Abbott?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move to 11.1. Public hearing, consideration and possible approval to amend the Sierra View Townhomes Plan Development Handbook to revise various design and development standards and other matters properly related thereto for a site approximately 30.5 acres. Karen, welcome.
Good afternoon, Mayor Pro Temp and Council. I'm Karen Malby, Development Service Manager. Bear with me 1 second. My exhibits got closed, so I need to open them again.
It is Big Brother.
Before you today is a request from the Sierra View Townhomes Plan Development Handbook to be amended. They would like to revise the various design and development standards within the handbook. The property, as you can see here, here's Los Altos, down here would be Vista. This is outlined in cyan. It's 30 acres. And in 2006, the rezoning request was approved by City Council. In 2007, the final handbook was approved. What they are requesting today is to amend this handbook. They are proposing new architectural elevations, and which changes the grading. So if you look at this plan development is 45 lots. They are not planning to change the number of lots. They're just changing the standards for the architecture, and which then also reduces the number of retaining walls. They have two different types of housing now. They have an uphill unit and a downhill unit, which picks up the grading. They're split units. Title 20 of the Sparks Municipal Code is currently silent on the procedure and findings that the city must use when considering modifications of a plan development handbook, and has received that has already been finalized and recorded. The draft zoning code, which is the next item before you today, has a new section in there, section 20.02.12G, which was reviewed by the Plan Commission on November 2nd. Because the new procedure for modifying the final handbook is still pending, my staff report includes two sets of findings. The first ones are the 5 criteria that are in NRS 278.8.540. The first one is that it does not vary the proposed gross residential density or intensity from the recorded Sierra View Townhomes Development Hand, because the overall density is at 1.5 dwelling units per acre. In this project, they don't propose any changes in that. And second one, does not vary the proposed ratio of residential to non-residential. This project is entirely residential. There is no non-residential component, except unless you would want to consider open space. Does not reduce the open space. It still remains at 26 acres. Of the 30 acres will be open space. There is no increase in the floor area proposed for non-residential, especially since there's no non-residential component of this project. The last of the 5 criteria is there's no increase in the total ground area covered by the buildings, nor is there a substantial change in the heights. The proposed amended handbook does not propose any changes in the developable area, and the proposed heights of the new units are actually less than the previously approved or the existing approved handbook. Based on the 5 substantial compliance criteria in the Sparks Municipal Code and the NRS, city staff believes that the final amended handbook for Sierra View Townhomes is in substantial compliance with the recorded handbook. Now to cover I believe there's 10 of them, findings for the modification of a final approved plan. The first one, A, is consistent with the comprehensive plan in the Truckee Meadows Regional Plan. The Truckee Meadow Regional Plan goals relevant to this project are goals 1.1 and 2.3 because the property is in the TMSA area and the land uses in the handbook are consistent with the comprehensive plan land use designations. The Sparks Comprehensive Plan goals and policies that this project is consistent with are goal MG6, policy CF1, policy RC22, and policy RC23. Because the design of the homes is a cluster development and reducing the per capita cost of providing infrastructure, the site is included in the city's modeling sewer and did not change the service levels. The site will be served by Fire Station 4 and is within the 6-minute response time. There is only one access point, so the fire department is requiring that the units have fire sprinklers, and that is in the handbook. And also addressed in the handbook are slope analysis, which supports the slope policies of RC 22 and 23. The next finding, B, is consistent with the surrounding land uses. The townhome sites are surrounded by open space on the north, east, and west. The north and east is the open space for Desert Hills Plan Development. The west is the Liberty Hills subdivision, open space. To the south, across the street are located commercial uses. The proposed townhomes will be allocated to only, to the south are commercial. The proposed homes will not be across from any or adjacent to any existing single-family homes. So the staff feels that it can make this finding. Finding C, the fiscally positive to the city for a period of at least 20 years. This finding is not applicable as the proposed modifications does not change the permitted uses, the residential density or the non-residential intensity. The streets and improvements will be private. Finding D, further mutual interest of the residents and owners of the planned development. There are no existing residents or property owners living within this planned development, and therefore the proposed amendment will not affect any existing residents. Finding E, will not impair the reasonable reliance of the residents and owners upon the provisions of the plan. The planned development has not been developed, so there are, again, no residents relying on the provisions of the approved plan. This request is from the existing property owners. Finding F, will not result in changes that will adversely affect the public interest. The public interest will not be affected by the amendment as the proposed changes are in substantial compliance with the previously approved and recorded final plan development. Finding G, consistent with the efficient development and preservation of the entire plan development. There is no change in the number of lots nor the 26 acres of open space. Finding H, does not adversely affect either the enjoyment of land abutting upon or across the street from the planned development or public interest. Sierra View Townhome Sites is located along an isolated section of Los Altos Parkway and does not adjoin any single-family homes. The existing single-family homes to the north are located at a much higher elevation than the townhome sites. The only access to the site will be directly from Los Altos Parkway and not through any other developments in the area. Staff does not anticipate that the commercial uses across Los Altos Parkways to the south will be adversely impacted by this project. Finding I is not granted solely to confer a private benefit upon any person. There is one owner of the property, and therefore the proposed amendments benefit only the overall project and the future homeowners. Last finding is public notice. The Planning Commission and City Council serve as public hearing for this item. A neighborhood notice of 750 feet was sent out with a total of 114 notices. It was published in the Reno Gazette-Journal on November 3rd, 2017. That concludes my presentation, and I'm available for any questions.
Questions or comments for Karen?
Karen, can you put the first map up again and show me the property one more time?
It's this 30 acres here.
Okay, thank you.
So are those are streets right above it? It looks like a cul-de-sac or a,
Yeah.
okay. For some reason, I thought that's where the entrance was gonna be, but it is gonna
No.
be down the bottom.
It's, see this, where the piece is truncated off, the
Uh-huh.
corner's kind of like cut off, that's where the entrance will come in. And the units will only be in this area.
Did you say it was a gated?
No, it will not be gated.
So what about the streets? You mentioned that they would be.
They will be
responsible.
private, but
They
they
will be
do not
private.
propose a gate.
Okay. And you said that they needed sprinklers in those uniform, in those?
Yeah, the fire
units?
department is requesting, because there is no the length of the cul-de-sac exceeds the length in the code. And so, and they don't have a secondary access, so the
Okay,
fire
so the-
department is requesting that this project have fire sprinklers.
Okay.
And that is one of the standards that's been in the handbook.
Okay.
And is not proposed to be changed.
So you're gonna have to cut the median and make your left-hand turns and everything?
Yeah, the traffic study says that they'll have to increase the storage capacity in the left turn pocket.
Okay.
There's gonna be a right-hand turn lane?
Coming down the hill?
South, east, or southwest?
No,
So they'll turn right off of Los Altos?
yeah, there is no deceleration lane.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, this is a public hearing. Anybody in the public wishing to speak at this time?
Ken wants to talk.
Ken?
Thank you. Good afternoon, and for the record, my name is Ken Crater, and I'm the applicant and the developer of this project. And I want to thank staff for all their work through the years, and now I think making this a much better project than we originally had. Stepping these units down the hillside, and the fact that we got an easement from DeVere Barker between our property and the ditch will allow us to create a much more attractive project within the city of Sparks. The only thing that I'd like to bring to council's attention, and I've had these conversations with staff, is the requirement to have a private street. And I appreciate staff being fiscally responsible for the city of Sparks and making that request. But in my mind, from a matter of fairness, the fact that we've got 45 lots on basically 4.33 acres, or over 10 dwelling units per acre, it just seems only fair that it be a public street, because these folks are paying taxes like every other homeowner in the area. And so that is the only change that I would request from council, is if there is any way this could become a public street. And it became even more important as I learned from my civil engineer that he's now concerned if this is a private street, we might be limited to street grades of 5%, would increase the cost of the project. And if need be, I would even willing to put a provision in the handbook that we slurry seal the street every 3 years as paid by the homeowners, because if you slurry seal streets like this, they're gonna last a long, long time. But the other issue too is in having a private street, it even forgoes the opportunity to do a special improvement district, say 50 to 70 years from now, when the sidewalks need to replace, because the Nevada revised statutes very clearly state that special improvement districts can only be done for public improvement. So I fully support all of staff's recommendations and conditions. A handbook is written, but I would request that council give consideration to allowing this street to be a public street. Other than that, I'm available to answer any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ken. Anybody else wishing to speak at this time?
Can you address the private public street?
Yeah, I'll get you down here. Anybody else in the audience wishing to speak? Okay, I'll close the public hearing, bring it back to the council. Mr. Martini. You had a question for me?
I want to address the public versus private street issue.
For the record, John Martini, your Community Services Director. Mr. Mayor Pro Tem and members of the council, the request for the handbook amendment did not include that. It has come very much at a last minute. I know that Ken has had some discussions with staff. I worked on this handbook in 2004. The original design did not have the width criteria to be a public street. When we consider streets to be public or private, we look at benefit. What does the street benefit other than just the development? For instance, the sidewalks that would be included in this do not connect to any other parts of town. They just go around the cul-de-sac and come back. As I recall, if this is going to be a public street, we had some other criteria that Fire Marshal Bob King and I worked on that would substantially make the road wider, which would cause more disturbance and more excavation such that a fire truck could get in there, a bigger cul-de-sac to ensure a turnaround to get out. The developer at that time did not want to have those kind of limitations placed on the project and therefore decided to make it a private road. And we have, for the last 10 years, worked with that criteria. If the council would choose, I would ask for you to continue this such that I can sit down with the developer and his team as well as fire marshal, and we will start these negotiations again and come back to you when we have an answer.
Mr. Dare.
My question actually is a little bit different. It actually has to do with you have a big flood zone right in front of that, a levee or whatever we would call that ditch. And is that gonna have to be dug down? I mean, how does that work?
Councilman Dare, that's another point as to why the original design had a narrower street. That's a very expensive bridge to build. And the developer at that time was looking to keep costs down and have as narrow of an entrance as they can, because yes, you are true, that structure along Los Altos Parkway, for those of us that were here in June of 2 years ago, it was running plumb full with that thunderstorm. It is a critical structure in the city's flood control program. It drains the vistas in Desert Highlands, in all of the ponds that connect there. It is critical. So a lot of the things we're discussing here were thought about in the past. I'm not saying we're not willing to discuss them again, but it will have serious impacts to what is proposed now.
Ms. Bivey.
John, can you tell me what the difference in what our city, our requirements right now for the width of our public streets versus what this project has proposed?
Development Services Manager Karen Melby just showed me the proposed cross-section is 25 foot in width. Ours is a minimum of 38, and it also depends on other criteria as the fire marshal sees fit. Our typical residential streets and subdivisions have multiple ways in and out. That allows for us to narrow our streets to that narrower cross-section because we have other ways for the fire department to get in and out. In a single passage, single attack, should the fire department need to get into that area to respond directly, the old criteria, and I have to apologize with changes in position, I haven't had these conversations with our fire marshal in quite a while. The fire marshal and fire chief at that time wanted to ensure that 2 fire trucks could go side by side such that one could come in while one could go out, as well as the REMSA vehicles. And this criteria would not meet that.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, it won't meet it if it's a private road or public
The proposed cross-section is shown here would not meet what I just discussed.
Okay.
For public.
For public, yeah.
For public road.
Criteria change if it's going to be public. If it's going to be dedicated public street, then we have full control of our needs need to be met in that infrastructure.
Okay. Mr. Dare?
So question, so I just want to make it clear, so today, if we approve what you have brought to us, it is as is, and moving forward with being a private road, and that we can move forward on. And if we say, if we go with what Ken, was that your name? Yeah, would propose, and we'd say, well, we can't vote on this now, you need to go back and spend time together and come up with these answers. And so, I don't know, part of my question is that what the developer really want to take that time? That's probably my.
Councilman Dare, that's a fair question. So please remember, this request for an amendment came in from the developer. And I love the changes they've made. think this is going to be a super product and a super project. The requested change to go to public streets was not requested in the initial submittal. It has not been reviewed through all the stages that it needs to be reviewed. Nothing against the developer. There's no malice here. It's come in kind of late. I'm saying if the council thinks it's important to meet the developer's request, staff at this time is not ready to answer those questions. I'd ask for you to table it and give us time to get back and get with his design team, the fire marshal, and see if we can have them propose amendments, again, to this handbook that we could then bring back to you to answer that question.
Which kind of goes to the question is, maybe, and it needs to go to Ken, is, are you, because a lot of times developments have a time window that we do that changes a lot of things, and I don't know that maybe we need to talk to him and ask him if this is something he would.
The question, let's bring Ken up and ask him what
exactly.
he wants to do.
Ken, that's
We don't need to beat this horse any longer. If he wants to continue it, then
Yeah.
we'll continue. If he wants to do it, we'll do it.
Ken, would you like us to do something with this today, or do you want time to go back and talk with staff?
So when I submitted this amendment, I actually did request, and again, for the record, Ken Crater, I did put on the plans for this to be a public street, but staff made it very clear that when a handbook goes to the planning commission, that it has to be in final form. And I really figured this was more of a council policy than anything, but I wouldn't propose to widen the street. That wouldn't make sense, because that would have much more impact on the hillside. I was just hoping staff or council would accept the street as is. I know it doesn't meet your public standards, but this essentially is hillside development, and we're trying to have smart design within the hillside to minimize the impacts to the city of Sparks, to the grading, the hillside, and both existing residents and future residents of this project. No, I really don't want to delay it, so if staff feels strongly that we would have to widen the street to make it a public street, then I guess I'll just accept it as is, as a private street, and move forward, because we are anxious to get this thing under construction. In fact, we're in final design already. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken.
Is that it, Mr. Lawson?
That was
Question. Okay, anybody else in the
Straightforward.
public wishing to speak at this time? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the council for action. Is there any further discussion? No, it's yours. Yeah, it's yours. That side of the street is yours.
Okay, I know up that canyon, we.
Yeah, yeah. Nice try.
Ours interweaves.
We can put it in Ward 2.
Yeah. I mean, I don't care. I'm just saying that this.
Okay, it is on
Yeah.
you're right on that side. Okay. I'm gonna make a
Okay,
motion.
Ms. Bybee.
I move to approve the amendment to the final planned development handbook for Sierra View Townhomes associated with PCN 17-0028 as the amended final handbook supports the findings as set forth in the staff report.
Okay, we have a motion. Mr. Lawson?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. A private road it is. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ken.
Good luck, Ken.
Thanks, Karen. Okay, 11.2, second reading, public hearing, discussion, and possible action on bill number 2729, amending Title 20 of the Sparks Municipal Code to revise definitions, permitted uses, landscaping, density, parking, and design standards, and providing other matters related thereto. Mr. Rundle.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith, Sparks City Council. I've narrowed my presentation down to an hour and a half.
Good, good.
Perfect. Narrow it down to a minute and a half.
The application that you got, the request today for the amendment to the Sparks Municipal Code zoning ordinance was quite substantial, so I'm going to try to hit some of the high points to keep this not too long. In 2011, the city of Sparks initiated a comprehensive overhaul of the Title 20, the Sparks zoning code of the municipal code. The city at that time, the city council adopted a three-phased approach. Phase one involved some quick fixes that the staff brought forward in code amendment form. Phase two was an analysis of the existing zoning code. And phase three was a program that substantially revised and reformatted the Title 20 into its user-friendliness, flexibility, and organization that you have today. In June of 2015, after numerous workshops, stakeholder meetings, and team meetings, the Sparks City Council adopted the Title 20 by ordinance. The city has now been utilizing the new Title 20 for over 2 years. Based on this experience, staff has identified refinements and revisions for the City Council's consideration. These amendments include definitions, procedures, permitted uses, landscaping standards, and parking and design standards. In November, the Sparks Planning Commission forwarded a recommendation of approval to the Sparks City Council. Now I'll just, in sequence of the chapters in the code, I'll go through some of the bigger amendments that I deem to be bigger amendments. In the permitted use table of the Title 20, staff is proposing, and the Planning Commission has a recommended approval of permitting multifamily development in the C1, the C2, and the tourist commercial zoning districts. They've also proposed to remove use standards for group homes and for liquor stores, to permit hotels or motels of greater than 20 units in the mixed use, and I'll just say in the Victorian Square area, to add equipment rental or sales as a permitted use in the industrial area, permit childcare in the public facility zoning district, and require conditional use permits for churches in the C2 zoning district and the downtown Victorian Square area, adopting hospice as a permitted use in the MF5, MUD, C1, C2, PO, and industrial zoning district, adding bodily fluid collection services in the same zoning districts, and permitting urban agriculture in the C1 and C2. That was something that was discussed in the initial zoning code amendment. It was permitted in other districts, and it hasn't provided any problems for code enforcement or there's a planning division. So we're proposing to include it in those two districts. Staff has also, the City Council just considered a handbook amendment. Staff has also proposed some new language regarding plan developments. Title 20 is currently silent on the procedure, considerations, and findings the city must use when considering a modification to a plan development that has already received final approval. So a new section has been proposed in the municipal code that addresses this deficiency. It is drawn from the NRS statute, which is identified as enforcements and modifications of an approved plan. And procedurally, the city's rezoning, it is very similar to the city's rezoning process. The premise underlying the proposed amendment process is that the modification of the final plan must be to further the mutual interests of the residents and owners of the plan development and of the public in the preservation of the integrity of the plan. And modification of the plan will not impair the reasonable reliance of the residents and owners upon the plan or result in changes that would adversely affect the public interest. So it's staff's opinion that we will have a more appropriate state complying statute in our municipal code for amendments of a plan development. Another section that we have proposed amendments to that were discussed at length and recommended by the Planning Commission were changes to the medical marijuana statutes. The changes are proposed to extend the hours of operation for dispensaries from 8 a.m. to be now from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. in all zoning districts in which they are permitted, and eliminate the requirement for a written safety plan to be submitted to the city for approval. The proposal also includes extending the loading and unloading hours to a period of 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. for production and cultivation facilities. Another successful component that we've utilized in the 2-year-old code is the temporary use permit process. The city has been utilizing this process to approve temporary uses such as public works projects, utility projects, and for businesses conducting parking lot events. One of the issues we have had with the temporary use permit is for nonprofits. My best example is Girl Scouts selling cookies at facilities throughout the city. What we are proposing with this amendment process is that certified nonprofit organizations would not have to obtain a temporary use permit. There would just be a set of standards that they would have to comply with when they are doing their temporary use. I think it could also would also apply for nonprofits such as a high school cheerleading team or the Boy Scouts selling popcorn, those kinds of things. Another proposed change that we've included in this amendment process is to add construction hours to the city of Sparks. Typically, construction hours are conditioned on a conditional use permit or an administrative review. This would apply construction hours across the city for all projects. And we are proposing from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Saturday. And if the developer, on a case-by-case basis, needs to extend those hours of operation, they'd be able to apply for a temporary use permit.
Second, Jim.
Yes.
Mr. Lawson.
So, Jim, on the construction time, that applies to my next-door neighbor who's building a deck also?
It would.
What's my remedy if my neighbor starts at 6 and doesn't finish till midnight?
You would call code enforcement, and we would have the ability to inform them of the hours of operation.
Because on rare occasions, this does happen where people are working at all hours. Maybe it's because they work a day shift and they can only work on their house at night, but that's been the problem in the past is the time has been there, but there's been no way to really enforce it.
Yes. This would
Come close to blows on a couple of them, so I don't.
Yes. This would codify it so that it would apply, and you'd have the ability to contact, in that case, code enforcement, which would be able to go out, maybe not at Sunday night at 12, but on Monday to to inform them you're breaking the.
It's got nothing else to do.
Okay. Jim, does that go with people working in the yards, like mowing their lawns?
No, it wouldn't, because that wouldn't require a building permit.
It's not construction?
No.
Okay,
So this
so
would be
that's still at
something-
8 o'clock, right?
The
Noise ordinance 8 to 10, something like that?
don't know that we have a noise ordinance. This would be different. This is for something that would be associated with a building permit, for example, or a grading permit.
I didn't mean to sidetrack you.
That's all right. I don't know where we would, I don't know sitting here where we would apply the, yard work at.
It's not a problem, I've always thought it was 8 o'clock in the morning. As a courtesy.
Yeah, as a courtesy, but I can't answer it out of the municipal code. Currently, the landscaping ordinance in the zoning code identifies that it does not apply to single-family residential. There is a specific section that exempts the landscaping ordinance from applying to single-family. However, in the code enforcement sections, Title VII, the Sparks City Council not too long ago adopted a property preservation ordinance, which does require certain amounts of landscaping to be done on single-family residential. So your team identified that this conflict existed in the code. So we've proposed language that would rectify that issue, so there would not be a conflict between the different chapters of the municipal code. As discussed earlier today in the council meeting with the development in downtown, this amendment proposes some amendments to the parking section, including the downtown Victorian Square parking district. Currently, there are some certain uses, as discussed earlier in this council meeting, that do not have to provide for their own parking if they utilize the parking district. Staff has made a request, the Planning Commission forwarded that request to remove some of the uses that can utilize the parking district and add other uses that could utilize it. Staff believes that medical office, should it locate in Victorian Square, should not be able to utilize the parking district and should have to provide their own parking. And staff believes that retail should be able to utilize the parking district in Victorian Square. And again, staff and planning commission recommended that approval as well. Currently, the planning commission considers annexations and forwards their recommendations to the city council. The city council has reviewed a handful of annexations in the last 2 years since the adoption of the new municipal code. Annexations have been discussed at length at both planning commission and council in terms of fiscal impacts or impacts to the infrastructure. Within the last year, there was a annexation considered by the planning commission that dealt with impacts to the sewer system. At the time the application went to planning commission, the sewer analysis for the city, the sewer program, had not been completed. So a true vetting of the impacts that the project would have could not be done at the planning commission meeting. It wasn't available until later when it went to the city council. The city council ultimately received a recommendation of denial on that request. What this amendment would allow would be for the planning commission to have the power or opportunity to continue an item, as currently they only have the ability to recommend approval or recommend denial to the Sparks City Council. Moving on into other items, any decision of the planning commission or staff may be appealed to the city council. The appeal proceedings have not always worked the best, in my opinion, for the city council because the current statute requires that once the appeal is received by the clerk's office, that it be scheduled at the next available city council meeting. The next available city council meeting can sometimes be too fast for your staff to be able to present the findings from that case that's being appealed, prepare a staff report for consideration by the city council. So what staff is proposing is that the ordinance be amended to allow the appeal to be heard within 30 days of receiving the appeal. That would provide more opportunity for the staff to present a case to the city council or just be able to present a complete staff report of the appeal to the city council, which currently the time doesn't permit that.
And do they still have 10 days for the appeal?
Correct.
Okay, but 30 days to hear it after.
Yes. So currently, if an appeal comes in on the 9th day, that appeal could potentially be heard at the very minimum to be put on an agenda, and that wouldn't necessarily provide staff the opportunity or the council to have the facts regarding the appeal. And along the same lines, on the appeal process, staff and the planning commission have proposed that the city council consider amending the code to require the appealed decision to be noticed to the neighbors in the same way that it was initially noticed. For example, if a conditional use permit goes to the planning commission, it's noticed at the 500 feet to all of the neighbors within proximity to the project site. If the planning commission makes a decision, it could be that all of the neighbors will leave that planning commission meeting thinking it was approved or it was denied or certain conditions were put on that project. If somebody were to appeal that, the neighbors wouldn't necessarily know that it went to the Sparks City Council for reconsideration. So what this amendment would do would require that appeal be noticed the same way that it was originally noticed to the planning commission. A real case we can point to is the Vistas rezoning request that was ultimately withdrawn. That decision was made by the planning commission and then appealed to the city council. However, the neighbors would not have known about that appeal, and they wouldn't have been able to come to the council to attest or contest that decision. So if this were to be approved and included in the code, that would be renoticed at 750 feet as the original rezoning was. Now, if staff makes an administrative decision that's appealed, nobody was noticed, then there would be no noticing of that appeal for the city council meeting. As it says in the agenda item, there are also definitions that were amended and included in the request. On Friday, we had a request of an applicant through the current planning side, and we identified that our code does not address what they were requesting. Well, it does address it, but I'm going to propose some language be included in the code to make our code clearer so that there's no confusion. And if I could have the overhead projector put on. And it's in regard to signs. So again, this amendment that I'm putting up here is not necessarily a change to the code, it's a clarification of the code, and it's regard to drive-through businesses. Chapter 2004-010, Section I 2.1 identifies that if you're a drive-through use, you can have 2 monument signs. So I'm going to use a restaurant, for example, McDonald's. They have a menu board, and then you pull up to the next menu board and you make your order. That is permitted currently in the municipal code. However, we have a section 5, number 5 below, which is 2 or 3 pages later in the municipal code, that says you can't locate a monument sign within 20 feet of each other, which may very well be a conflict to what the upper section is trying to do, the 2004-010. So what your staff is proposing to you is that we would identify that monument sign separation restrictions do not apply to the drive-through uses, just to make that clarification. But again, that doesn't necessarily amend the code, it's just a clarification. And those are what I deem to be the highlighted items of the municipal code amendments, and concludes my presentation.
Okay, Mr. Lawson.
We started this Title 20 amendment changes in 2012, wasn't it?
Well,
soon after I got on the council.
We started the, yes. Oh, you mean for the original?
Yeah, when we
Yes.
started the 3-prong approach.
Yes.
So this is a long time coming, obviously, but the good news is we're working through it and making it better. We wanted to make it easier to do business with the city of Sparks. I think we're proving that by, clarifying some stuff, making it easier. We're getting out of the treating the marijuana industry separately than any other business. I like that idea. There's a lot of good stuff in here that I'm impressed with, and I know you personally have put a lot of work into this, but I want to thank the planning staff for this. This is good stuff. This is what we envisioned at the lowest part of the downturn, is how do we make it easier to do business with the city of Sparks, and I think we're accomplishing that.
Any other questions or comments? I would agree with Mr. Lawson here. I know you guys worked hard on this and you're revisiting, which is a smart thing to do, so. Okay, this is a public hearing. I'll open up anybody in the public wishing to speak at this time? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the council. Looking for a motion if there's any further discussion?
Donald's ready.
Well, then, okay? Yep. Okay, Mr. Abbott.
Yeah, can we make that motion and can we put that amendment in as well? So I move to adopt bill number 2729, amending Title 20 of the Sparks Municipal Code. I guess the amendment that was presented.
That's fine.
Is that okay?
Yep. Mr. Lawson.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. Thanks, Jim. A lot of good work.
Good stuff.
Okay, moving on to comments. This is the public comment period. Anybody in the public wishing to speak at this time? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the council for council comments. Any comments from the city council, city manager?
City manager.
Mr. Driscoll.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. I have an announcement. The following committee appointment is available. Civil Service Commission, 1 member for a partial term ending June 30th of 2019. Persons interested in serving on this committee should complete a community service application available from the city clerk's office. You may also apply online at the city's website, www.cityofsparks.us. Click on Government on the webpage, then under Boards and Commissions, click Volunteering for a Sparks Board or Commission, then fill out the online application. Applications for this position will be accepted until the close of business on Friday, January 12th of 2018. That is all, sir.
Okay, Mr. Dare.
Yes, we just, I want to say shout out to 39 North and we had the parade and then we went into this thing this weekend. It ended up being a pretty awesome thing. I think most of us got to go down and see it. Thanks to Parks and Recs. I tell you what, I know it takes everyone working together. And so Tracy, your team did fantastic. And I got to tell you, we had quite a crowd down there actually, and it was quite festive, and it's what we're looking for. I know there's always some tweaks and things we got to keep doing to make it all work, but it was pretty awesome. And then secondly, if there's any, when it comes to some of the things happening right now with their homeless, I just want to do a shout out to anybody interested in being a part of helping with the overflow shelter. What's happening is you're having about 3 to 4 volunteers each night from different churches, different faith groups that are coming together and volunteering their time in the evening. And so if anybody's interested in that, they actually can email me at kdare@cityofsparks.us, and I'll help get them the information. But right now we have it's for the next 3 to 4 months, and we have all of January set as trying to fill in, and we're trying to do it for the next few months. So if you're part of a church or part of a group or part of a business that says, I'd like to give time, I just want to make sure that's open to people. And with the weather coming, we know that it's only going to get a little bit worse before we can come to some good answers. So thank you.
Okay, any other comments? Seeing none, without objection, we are adjourned.
I'd like to call to order the Sparks Redevelopment Agency meeting of Monday, December 11th with a roll call.
Chairperson Bybee,
Here?
agency members Abbott,
Here.
Lawson,
Here.
Smith,
He ran out for a moment.
Absent. He'll be back.
He's in his office.
In his office.
absent for the moment, Martini, absent, Deere,
Present.
Agency Attorney Adams,
Here.
Chief Administrative Officer Driscoll.
Here.
We have a quorum, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Public comment, item 3. Do I have anyone who wants to make public comment? Seeing none, we'll move on. Item number 4, agenda 4.0, approval of the agenda is submitted. Do I have a motion to approve?
Move to approve. Second.
A motion from Member Lawson, a second from Member Dare. Please vote. Chair's on. Okay, motion carries. 4 to 1 absent. Item number 5, 5.1, consideration and possible approval of the minutes of the Sparks Redevelopment Agency meeting November 27th, 2017. Do I have any corrections or additions or a motion to approve?
Move to approve. Second.
Motion to approve by Member Lawson, a second by Member Abbott. Please vote. Motion carries. Item number 6, 6.1, reports of claims and bills approved for payment and appropriation transfers for the period November 9th, 2017 through November 22nd, 2017.
Approve?
Approve. Second.
I thought Armando was here to
Armando's early.
tell us.
He's on the next one.
He's
Okay,
being
so
efficient.
can we do, who did I have the motion from?
Move to approve.
Move to approve by Member Dare, second by Mr. Lawson?
Okay.
Second by, you guys tied. Okay, so I have a motion and a second. Please vote.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously at the last minute. Item 6.2, public hearing, consideration and possible approval for disposition and development agreement, ACSRA 316, between the redevelopment agency of the City of Sparks, the City of Sparks and SWD Partners LLC, providing for the sale and redevelopment of a parcel of 0.96 acres in size and improved with a 4-level parking garage at 955 C Street in Sparks, Nevada, and having assessor's parcel number 032 193-19. Mr. Ornelas.
Thank you, Chairwoman, for inviting me and members of the agency. I'm on the Assistant Community Services Director. So both the city and the agency are parties to the disposition and development agreement, so it requires approval by both. The agency, as I noted during the council presentation, can dispose of the property and enter into the DDA if they have the consent of the city council. The city council has provided that consent, and so you are free to consider the approval of the disposition and development agreement.
Okay, do I have any questions for Mr. Ornelas?
Move to approve.
Okay, I have public hearing here first.
Move and approve it.
So, so hearing no questions for Mr. Ornelas, do I have any comments from the public? Seeing none, I'll close public comment. Now I'm looking for a motion.
Move to approve.
Mr. Lawson, Member Lawson, motion to approve.
Second.
I have a second by Member Smith. All those in, go ahead and vote. Motion carries unanimously. Okay. Sorry. All right. Comments from the public, item 7.1. Do I have any comments from the public? Seeing none. Item 7.2, do I have any comments from the agency or chief administrative officer?
I got a quick one, Charlene.
Yes. Member Abbott.
Our license plate for the museum comes out next Monday, so I just wanted to remind everyone on that one. And as city employees, we do have access to our lower numbers, the first 0 through 100. So I just want to stress that we need to sell 1,000 by end of next year to maintain our license plate.
I have a question on that. Do you know on the personalized license plates, can you not order them until Monday? Do you have to do that through the DMV or do you go through the
The
museum?
DMV for all those, and you get 5 letters for a personal license plate.
Okay, so that's all on the DMV website.
Yep.
And then for the numbers also, the 18th is the first day you can order those?
We can go down. So if you want a certain number between 0 to 100, some are taken, but you can go to the museum or call them and get your name on that list and the number that you want that's on the low side, and they'll tell the DMV that, so you'll have access to it on. I've been told the 18th. The numbers will be there. So.
Okay, so the general public can go ahead and contact the museum if they're interested in purchasing one of the plates.
Well, if they became a member of the museum, they would have access to some of the lower numbers.
Okay, perfect.
Until then, they have access to the normal numbers.
Okay, but encourage everyone to buy one. We need to sell 1,000.
Yes, we do. That we do.
Perfect, thank you. Any other comments? Okay, seeing none, this meeting is adjourned.